push into parts of Northern Ireland, much of western Scotland throughout Wednesday morning. The rain's not going to be particularly heavy, but there's going to be a lot of cloud with it. And with this rain and cloud, temperatures will be on the rise. You can see the wind direction starting to shift to more of a southwesterly, so up to 11 or 10 degrees. But in the south and east, although it's dry, it's still going to be a chilly one. Bye-bye.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Thank you, Britain, for making us the fastest growing news website in the nation, because the truth matters, and so do you.
Good morning. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. There's significant congestion on the M8 eastbound junction 2 due to overrun roadworks. In Derbyshire, a collision on the A50 eastbound between the A38 and A514 has resulted in lane closures, causing 30-minute delays. The A303 westbound between the A36 and A350 in Wiltshire is blocked by a broken-down vehicle. In Cambridgeshire, a crash on the A1 northbound at the A605 junction has closed one lane. And on the trains, Great Northern services face minor delays between Stevenage and Peterborough. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
So proud of GB News for getting, and Bev of course, for getting the interview. But the real important message from all of it was, of course, President Trump's attack on the BBC. I've been proven wrong because I tweeted a couple of days ago, it just shows how much I know. I tweeted that I thought President Trump might accept the apology from the BBC as an off-ramp and say, look, I want to be the nice guy here. I don't want to sting the great British public who, of course, pay the licence fee and who would ultimately be funding any settlement or court fees. So I thought he might use that as an off-ramp. But nope, we got into the Roosevelt room in the White House. Bev sat down with him. I was standing just behind Bev listening to the whole interview. And even before we went live with the interview and started recording, he was so shocked, angry, and more than anything, actually, confused as to why the BBC would behave like that. He just couldn't believe, not that, you know, on one occasion, fine, maybe it could be a mistake, but the second time, the Newsnight incident just proved that, in his mind, it was intentional, it was institutional bias. There's a clip there of, a photo, sorry, there of us in the Oval Office. It was an amazing experience, Nana, of course, just being in that room. Once we finished the interview, President Trump came over to us and said hello and asked if we'd like to see his office and the Oval Office. And yeah, stepping into that room, the history, you can feel it, the soul of the place, the grandeur, the gold as well that President Trump has installed all over the room. He's received some criticism for his use of sort of gold decor across the White House, but I have to say it was extraordinary. And it didn't stop there. He then invited Bev and I and some of the crew out onto the Rose Garden patio. There was American music playing, which was very funny, and we had a quick glimpse down at the presidential Hall of Fame, just from the top of the patio there.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good morning, it's 9:30 on Tuesday the 25th of November, live across the UK. Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
Well, the Chancellor has come out fighting as she brands her critics misogynists and urges Labour MPs to unite behind her budget. Just over 24 hours to go now.
Each of us must do our bit for the security of our country and the brightness of its future.
Left-wing MPs have been out in Parliament Square with an effigy of Rachel Reeves calling for higher taxes on the highest earners. Here's Green Party leader Zach Palansky.
Rachel Reeves keeps talking about tough choices, but these are always tough choices for working class people, for disabled people, for migrants. When are we going to see tough choices for multimillionaires and billionaires?
And Rachel Reeves plans to cut the annual tax-free ISA limit from £20,000 to £12,000 in what could be a huge blow to savers.
I regret the mistakes that have been made and the impact that has had.
Well, the BBC chairman Samir Shah apologising to licence fee payers over the Trump documentary Chaos, but he still says he thinks that editing was justified.
And Donald Trump and Volodymyr Zelensky are set to come face-to-face again for crunch talks to iron out a peace deal. Will it be more harmonious than in February?
You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III.
Is Black Friday one big scam? New research shows 8 in 10 Black Friday deals are the same price or even cheaper at other times of the year. It's another tax rise, isn't it? If you reduce the amount of money you can put into your ISA. I checked the numbers. There are 14 million people who hold
14
cash ISAs. That's a lot of people the Chancellor is going to alienate with her budget on Wednesday by reducing the amount you can pay in 20,000 instead of 12,000. It's a tax rise.
Yes, because so when you get interest on any money over that, you will then have to pay
tax on it. Absolutely.
On that interest. And also, you know, I can understand taxing milkshakes and things like this.
Sure.
It's supposedly bad for you. I mean, I don't think it's a good idea, but you can understand it. But why are you taxing something that's a good thing to do? Saving. We should be encouraging people
we should
to
be
do
encouraging, and people who and thrift and saving is good for us, and she's penalising it.
Yeah, and we already have much lower saving rates than other countries in Europe, quite considerably. So, she's just looking everywhere to get little bits of money into the Treasury because she's not going to raise the basic rate of tax or cut the enormous amount that the government spends.
Well, as ever, we want to know what you think. Send your views, post your comments by visiting
gbnews.com/your say. But first, here is a 60-second news update with Tatiana Sanchez.
Andrew, Miriam, thank you very much. Rachel Reeves has insisted she will still be Chancellor in 2 years' time as she hit out at what she's called misogyny in public life and urged Labour MPs to unite behind her tax-raising budget. The Chancellor will double down on the government's commitment of continuing to slash NHS waiting times. In this week's budget, Rachel Reeves will confirm today the investment for hundreds of new neighbourhood health centres to deliver healthcare directly to people's doorsteps across the country. American, Ukrainian and Russian officials have begun talks in Abu Dhabi, according to reports. US Army Secretary Dan Driscoll arrived on Monday for peace talks, a Russian delegation, according to US media. Ukraine's capital, Kyiv, came under attack overnight, meanwhile, with officials saying at least 6 people have been killed. A man accused of driving into crowds at Liverpool's Victory Parade is due to go on trial today. 54-year-old Paul Doyle is expected to appear at Liverpool Crown Court, charged with 31 offences related to the incident on the 26th of May. Those are the latest GB News headlines. For now, more from me in half an hour.
Tune into GB News Radio wherever you are, online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Hello, good morning and welcome. You're watching and listening to Britain's Newsroom. We're live across the United Kingdom on GB News with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
So, in a private meeting with Labour MPs, so private, Chancellor's people briefed the meeting to the press afterwards. That's how private it was. She accused her critics of misogyny and she called for all Labour MPs to unite behind her ahead of tomorrow's budget.
Well, also in her defiant message, she insisted that she will be the Chancellor in 2 years' time.
I would lay money on it that she will not be Chancellor in a year's time.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think you're right because however well tomorrow's statement goes for her in terms of how well it's initially received, over the next few weeks there'll be so much analysis of which area of business is going to be hit, how many people are going to leave the country. It's inevitable. Labour backbenchers will become even more restless, and I just think her position will be untenable. And I feel for her personally, but I think it's so unwise to accuse people of misogyny for criticising her, when I'm afraid in politics that's just what you let yourself in for.
Yeah, and look, she's being criticised, not because she's a woman, she's being criticised because of all the litany of broken promises. They weren't going to raise national insurance, they did. The inheritance tax rate on farmers, which we weren't expecting. She said we're not coming back for more borrowing. We're borrowing more money than ever before. She said that she wasn't coming back for higher taxes. She is.
Yeah. And maybe weakness as well, because she did propose to cut the benefits bill. She did propose to cut winter fuel allowance. And however unpopular those things were, she was at least trying to reduce spending. But they've had to U-turn on that because of backbenchers. So she's now perceived to be weak, Will she just U-turn again if some of her budget decisions are unpopular? So it's very difficult. Yes, she's in a very, very difficult position. But then you've got ministers like Karen Smith, who was on Breakfast just now, coming out and saying, well, we must have 50% of women in Parliament. I don't think that helps either. It should be the best people for the job. It doesn't matter whether you're male or female.
So what's the atmosphere going to be like in the Treasury now? Is she still working on the speech? Will she still be refining and maybe changing policies? Let's talk to Sir John Redwood, who was in Margaret Thatcher's policy unit and held a clutch of senior ministerial jobs. Sir John, good morning to you. I was talking to a Treasury advisor last night who told me in Gordon Brown's day they were still fine-tuning the budget speech until 2 o'clock in the morning the day before. Would that have been the case in your day?
Well, no, and we tried to put it to bed rather sooner than that, and particularly in this world where you're meant to agree everything with the OBR in advance, it's meant to be done well in advance, and it's a sign of panic and crisis that this government has briefed the media on so many different types of budget in the run-up to this one, and may still not have nailed down all the phrases they need to use. It's a very silly way of behaving, and it puts the Chancellor under too much pressure and means she won't have such a good delivery in the House.
And John, who decides what goes into the Chancellor's speech? Because obviously she will set out the major changes that she's going to implement, but there's a thick book, isn't there, as well, that's given out in the House of Commons with all the fine details of those plans. So how is it decided what's said from the dispatch box and what's left for later analysis?
Well, Treasury officials and OBR officials draft the original draft, and they will try and come to an independent assessment of what the most significant things are, because they should be the ones that are properly reported to the House orally in the budget statement, and they will make a preliminary judgment on what you needn't mention in the budget speech. But ultimately, it's the Chancellor that decides. The Chancellor can rewrite or change the speech as much as he or she likes, and they will often exercise political judgment, and they can get that wrong. They can leave something out which is bad news or embarrassing deliberately, and then it gets discovered, and then I think they get more bad publicity for it than if they'd been open about it in the first place.
Yeah, and sometimes I suppose as well, Sir John, they hope that they bury perhaps some of the unpopular stuff in the fine detail. I think one year, wasn't it, Gordon Brown was getting rid of the 10p tax rate, something like that, and it was discovered in the Red Book. He hadn't mentioned it in the budget speech.
Yes. And he was an example of a powerful Chancellor who would have argued with his officials and rewritten much of it or written some of it himself with his own personal advisor. It was a very secretive Chancellor advisor grouping in the Treasury under Brown, with the officials finding it difficult to get in the game. I think with Rachel Reeves, she will be much more open to the officials doing a lot of the work. But I think also you've got to bear in mind that this budget would have been even more crawled over by Number 10 than has been normal in the past, because clearly Number 10 feels they have to man or woman mark the Chancellor and her staff and go over the detail themselves. So I think you're going to have an even worse concoction because you're going to have too many cooks, and the broth won't be very palatable.
And one of those cooks has been the OBR, the Office for Budget Responsibility, which you mentioned. It does feel as if the run-up to this budget, full of leaks, has been so controlled by the OBR, their decision to downgrade productivity, their decision about how much of a black hole needs to be filled. Do you think the OBR has too much power and actually some of that should return to Number 11?
Well, I've been a long-standing critic of both the previous fiscal rules and the revised fiscal rules of Rachel Reeves for that very reason. I think it's a madness to mainly guide your budget judgments on the OBR's forecast of 5 years' time. They don't know what's going to happen in 5 years' time. None of us do. I can't give them a better forecast than they can come up with. All you know is it's bound to be wrong because so many things will change. And it means that the government never has to control spending or borrowing in the next year when it really matters. They're always talking about getting the budget into shape in 5 years' time. And of course, under the system, 5 years never comes because by the time you get to 5 years, they're rolling the thing forward another 5 years. So it means no control. But as you rightly say, given the way the game is played, it forces chancellors to make decisions which they don't really want to make and may not be the right ones for the economy. But you can't get away from the fact that this budget is wrecked before it is undertaken because they've allowed spending to get completely out of control and they have no wish or ability to get spending under control. And it's very simple what you have to do from here, and you have to start with getting rid of an awful lot of wasteful expenditure and a lot of the losses and mistakes of the public sector so that you don't need to raise taxes.
And Sir John Redwood, they will say that they've stuck to their manifesto commitment, but we know last year they raised national insurance for employers. I would argue that was a breach of the manifesto. Even cutting the amount you can pay into your cash ISA from 20,000 to 12,000. In effect, that's raising people's taxes. So we're going to be hit with a series of stealth taxes.
Well, they've blown up both the spirit and, in some ways, the letter of their promises on taxation. Everybody was left with the feeling that this was a safe, more moderate Labour government in prospect at the time of the election, and that people wouldn't be facing very big tax rises on their income and savings, and the opposite has been true. But, I mean, they've deliberately broken their manifesto on the national insurance because they did put up national insurance on the self-employed. That's a direct break with the idea that you don't take people's working income and take more of it away. And if you have the tax threshold strategy of increasing the number of years when the tax thresholds don't come up, in Rachel Reeves' own words in her last budget, that is breaking their manifesto.
Well, Sir John Redwood, thank you so much for your insight this morning. I'm sure you'll be watching very closely tomorrow.
He will be.
I will indeed, and everybody is extremely nervous for good reasons, because taxing more is the last thing we need.
Absolutely.
All right, Sir John, always good to talk to you. That's Sir John Redwood, the former Tory MP. Now, how is business feeling about the big day tomorrow?
Well, GB News' Northern Ireland reporter, Doogie Beattie, joins us now. Doogie, what are you hearing from business owners?
Well, business owners are very apprehensive about what's going to go on, because last year's budget, of course, caused mayhem on the high streets and for the hospitality sector and those part-time jobs. Many say that it actually done more damage to the high street, and earlier on in the week I caught up with Glyn Roberts of Retail NI to hear what his thoughts were on last year's budget and what he's hoping for this year.
Well, we need a budget that supports growth, that addresses the cost of doing business crisis that we have in the UK. We've seen that the figures for growth are literally non-existent, and that bows out what we said about last year's national insurance increase. It clobbered the business community. It particularly clobbered our small independent retailers, and, you know, I think stunted growth on the high street.
Well, that was the high street, but what about new businesses? They are getting really hurt by the national insurance contributions. Of course, this employment legislation that's coming in that really ties the hands of employers. And I managed to catch up with Neil Sands. He's one of Ireland's top entrepreneurs, and just recently has bought over a water company for bottled water. And he really wants to know about education, about making two jobs do one, and educating a workforce and getting them to stay there. This is what he had to say.
Particularly those folks that are, you know, maybe best well versed with the machinery that we have here. The new machinery that's coming out is much more digital, and it does require those digital skills to come along with it.
Well, that's all very well for all of them there, and they may blame the budget and they may look for things that are going to happen in the budget, but really Northern Ireland is no different than Scotland and Wales. It has a devolved parliament, and although it has to stay inside the tax regime of Westminster, i.e. national insurance, fuel duty, etc., the devolved institutions hand out that budget, and Northern Ireland currently has a 400 million deficit for this year, and that's not including the data breach, which could be another 120 million, so £500 million, and that is the permanent secretaries not keeping an eye on where politicians are spending money and the public sector really running away with taxpayers' money. That'll have to be looked at not only in Northern Ireland but also in Scotland and Wales.
Doogie Beattie in Northern Ireland, thank you very much for that report.
Now, in the last few moments, Father Ted co-creator Graeme Linhan has arrived at Westminster Magistrates Court as judgment is due in the trial over his alleged harassment of transgender woman Sophia Williams, all of which he denies. We'll bring you the latest on GB News.
Well, still ahead, we'll tell you the truth behind those enticing Black Friday sale deals.
Up next, though, the dreaded BBC.
I regret the mistakes that have been made and the impact that has had.
Yes, we'll give you our reaction to the BBC chairman's apology of the doctored Donald Trump documentary.
But first, that elusive holiday sun, here it is.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Hello, we've got some wet weather pushing through the Mediterranean this week. It should turn drier by the time we get to the weekend, however. In the Canary Islands, it's looking relatively dry, highs around 19 degrees. A little bit cooler towards Lisbon, 11 or 12 degrees. Now, here's that wet weather I mentioned. It's moving across parts of Italy, Slovenia, as well as Croatia and into Greece later on this week. But parts of Italy, as well as Croatia, should get drier by Friday or Saturday. Temperatures remaining a little below average. Bye-bye.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Last time I was here was with Buddy, my golden retriever, who joined me for the first 2,000 kilometre of my 13,000 kilometre triathlon from England to Everest. But this time we got back and we've just got a rescue dog, but Teddy, who's inspired our next adventure, our next charity expedition in aid of rescue dogs. So, yeah.
I'm going to slow you down a tiny bit.
Absolutely, that's
you
fine.
said fairly quickly 13,000 kilometres.
Yeah.
So tell me about the stages of that.
So, yeah, so it was 6 months tomorrow, 6 months ago to the day, was on summit of Everest and completed the longest climb of Mount Everest in history. So it was 13,157 kilometres, which started with a swim across the English Channel and then a 12,000 kilometre bike ride across 18 countries to sea level in India, and then a 1,300 kilometre run and hike and climb from sea level to the top of Mount Everest. So it was the first triathlon to the top of the world and also the longest climb of Everest in history, which was for a great veterans charity called SABSIM, which makes mental health courses using wildlife and nature. And I studied zoology, massive animal lover myself, and now I've been back 6 months and we've just come across and rescued Teddy. It inspired our next little venture.
I mean, the trip you undertook, the 13,000 kilometres, medical experts said it was impossible.
Well, a lot of people said to me, a lot of experts said they're not sure if it's possible. You know, the question was that, you know, after nearly an 8,000-mile triathlon, would the human body then be capable of then climbing Everest? I lost 18 kilos, nearly died many times. The hardest day was on day one, actually, 18 and a half hours across the channel. That was just day one of 237. But we made it in the end. It was for a great cause, and we kind of defied possible to show the most important message of my entire kind of expedition, that the only person that knows what's possible is looking in the mirror.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's economy is at a crossroads, and this budget day, every decision counts.
From taxes and rent to the cost of living.
Whatever the outcome, the GB News family will be there
with expert analysis breaking down what it means for you.
Budget day all day tomorrow.
Only here on the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 9 minutes to 10. You're watching Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Well, another embarrassing display by BBC Chairman Samir Sharma-Macy, still there, frankly, grilled by MPs, I would say lightly toasted, actually, as he tried to defend the corporation after their horrific doctoring of the Donald Trump speech. Have a listen.
I regret the mistakes that have been made and the impact that has had. I'd like to apologise to the licence fee payer who funds the BBC to deliver its mission, and I'd like to apologise to the thousands of people who work for the BBC, our staff.
So he admitted it was a mistake, but he tried to justify why the BBC had spliced together these two separate clips of Donald Trump's speech. Take a listen to what he said.
There was a plausible case that this edit, because the point of the programme was to deliver to the British audience, because it was about the supporters for President Trump and what they were learning. So there was a case for, as it were, the edit. This was discussed and debated, and there was a difference of opinion. I've already.
What case can you make for deliberately misleading the viewers of that programme about what the President of the United States said in that speech? What justification is there? And if it was so justified, why do they cover it up?
Yes, so it's
he knew from January, we now know, not May. He knew from January. The report by the whistleblower was completed in May, but he knew in January, and it came out this month when it was leaked to a national newspaper.
Yes, it feels like they believe they're justified in doing this because they think it was the right perception to give viewers of Donald Trump. But of course, their job is to tell the truth, not to give any particular.
And he also thought the Director General, Tim Davie, who's the boss, shouldn't have resigned. Doesn't the buck stop at the top? Which actually is also. I mean, I think Davie was right to resign, but the chairman should have gone too.
Yes, and apparently one of the arguments they had was about what type of apology to make, which is why it took so long. So there you go. Well, still coming up, momentum is growing for Wes Streeting to challenge the Prime Minister as Labour's leader. There are calls for a coronation rather than a contest.
We'll tell you why and when, and we'll tell you why also that is simply not going to happen. This is Britain's Newsroom, Britain's favourite morning show on GB News with Andrew and Miriam.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. It's going to be the sunniest day of the week for many of us today, but it is feeling colder out there, and there is a frost expected more widely this evening. We've got a northerly wind across the UK, particularly across coastal areas, and this will drag in a few showers to eastern areas of Scotland, England, as well as southwestern areas of Wales, down in the southwest of England too, down into Cornwall. But for many of us, it will be a dry and clear day. Plenty of sunshine out there, but with that northerly wind, it will feel chillier. Temperatures in the single figures wherever you are, and particularly if you're exposed to that onshore wind off the North Sea, it's going to be feeling colder than it has done over the past few days. And now into this evening, there's very little in the way of change. Another dry evening to come for many areas. A few showers, though, across the far north and west of Scotland. We've got a weather front approaching from the north and west that will take centre stage throughout Wednesday afternoon. Across Northern Ireland, we'll start to see some cloud thicken, but further inland across Scotland, northern areas of England, we'll start to see that frost setting in this evening quite early on, I think. And a few showers could come further inland across eastern areas of England this evening. But for many of us, it is going to be a dry night. And as I said, the frost will really start to set in. You can see those blues across the map. That's showing where we're expecting temperatures to dip below zero. So it's quite a widespread affair by Wednesday morning, away from the far southeast of England. So we could be down as low as -6 or -7 across parts of Scotland, -5 across rural areas of Wales and parts of the Midlands. As I said, on Wednesday, we've got a weather front on the way. Now that will push into parts of Northern Ireland, much of western Scotland throughout Wednesday morning. The rain's not going to be particularly heavy, but there's going to be a lot of cloud with it. And with this rain and cloud, temperatures will be on the rise. You can see the wind direction starting to shift to more of a southwesterly, so up to 11 or 10 degrees. But in the south and east, although it's dry, it's still going to be a chilly one. Bye-bye.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Thank you, Britain, for our more than 2 million YouTube subscribers and more than 2 billion views. That is Britain watching, sharing and making its voice heard louder than ever before.
Good morning. This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. Currently, the A9 northbound at Pittergowan is restricted due to a broken down vehicle. Drivers should approach with caution. In Derbyshire, on the A50 eastbound, a collision causes significant delays, with one lane closed. In Kent, a road incident on the M20 westbound entry slip at Junction 9 has led to all lanes closing. Expect disruptions. Additionally, the A47 eastbound in Norfolk and the A417 northbound in Gloucestershire face congestion and broken down vehicle issues, respectively. And on the trains, Great Northern reports minor delays between Stevenage and Peterborough. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
It's the final week to see how you can enjoy Christmas on us. First, we'll give you an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash. Then we'll give you a further £10,000 cash to spend on all your Christmas presents, even the tree. Christmas lunch, that's on us too, with £1,000 in shopping vouchers to spend at your favourite supermarket. Finally, a GB News Christmas goodie bag. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB 17 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 28th of November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning, it's 10 o'clock on Tuesday the 25th of November. We're live across the United Kingdom. This is Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
Well, she's come out fighting the Chancellor, branding her critics misogynists, and she's urging Labour MPs to unite behind the budget with just 24 hours to go. Would it be the nightmare before Christmas?
Each of us must do our bit for the security of our country and the brightness of its future.
Well, left-wing MPs have been out in Parliament Square with an effigy of Rachel Reeves calling for higher taxes on the highest earners. Here's the Green Party leader, Zach Polanski.
Rachel Reeves keeps talking about tough choices, but these are always tough choices for working class people, for disabled people, for migrants. When are we going to see tough choices for multimillionaires and billionaires?
And the government says it's doubling down on slashing NHS waiting lists as they announce 250 health one-stop shops.
Well, they say it's the first step towards a neighbourhood health service. But will it really make a difference, and will it help people feel better about the government, given that they're going to face tens of billion pounds of tax rises being announced tomorrow?
Well, one of those tax rises could be a cut to the annual tax-free cash ISA limit from £20,000 to £12,000 in what could be a huge blow to savers.
I regret the mistakes that have been made and the impact that has had.
That is the BBC chairman Samir Shah apologising to licence fee payers over the documentary chaos caused by the misediting of the Donald Trump documentary.
Well, Donald Trump and Volodymyr Zelensky are set to come face to face again for crunch talks to iron out a peace deal. Will it be more harmonious than back in February?
You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III.
Andrew, we're just seeing pictures of some of those left-wing MPs protesting on Parliament Square, asking for higher taxes on the rich. But I saw a really interesting fact the other day that actually, even if you confiscated the entire wealth of all of the UK's billionaires, I think we've got about 160, it would only take 6 months to spend all their money.
Wow.
And then what would you do? Where are you going to get your next chunk of tax from?
Anyway,
it's a great idea, tax the rich more, but there just aren't enough of them. It's not going to make any difference.
And of course, a lot of them have already left the country because of the tax rises in the last budget, and more will be probably leaving today.
Indeed. And yesterday, Peter Kyle, who's the business secretary, admitted that some of Labour's policies have actually caused business leaders to flee the country. Will that happen anymore?
Only this week, Lashki Mittal, who is a steel tycoon who gave £5 million to the Labour Party in the 1990s. He's left, he's moved to Switzerland, and he's one of Britain's richest men. And of course, if they leave, they're the wealth creators who create the jobs.
And the last time we saw this kind of brain and wealth drain was, of course, the 70s, when taxes were higher and higher, and it took Thatcher to come in and restart the economy, really. But I don't think there's any Thatcher waiting in the wings this time.
What about Kenny Badenop? Oh, no.
You never know. Their speech at party conference. It's just they've got to get into power, haven't they? Or some sort of centre-right government has to get into power.
They're miles from power. As ever, we'd like to know what you think. Send your views, post your comments by visiting
gbnews.com/your say. But first, here's the news with Tatiana Sanchez.
Miriam, thank you. The top stories. Rachel Reeves has insisted she'll still be Chancellor in 2 years' time as she hit out at what she's called misogyny in public life and urged Labour MPs to unite behind her tax-raising budget. Ms Reeves pledged that she wouldn't let her critics beat her and said Labour needs to show voters that it deserves a second term in power, but would only be able to do so if MPs stuck together. She said that leaks in the run-up to the budget had been incredibly destabilising. That's after concerns were raised about tomorrow's budget, which is expected to raise £30 billion worth of tax. Addressing the Parliamentary Labour Party last night, Ms Reeves argued the budget should be regarded as a package and not a pick and mix, where MPs like the cola bottles but not the fruit salad. Shadow Levelling Up Secretary James Cleverly spoke to GB News.
I don't think it's legitimate to criticise person for basically their chromosomes. So I'm critical of her because she was completely dishonest in the lead up to the general election about their tax plans, that she has ramped up taxes, she is killing jobs, this constant briefing, U-turning, re-briefing, re-U-turning is crushing confidence in the British economy just at the time when we need it to be most active. These are the things she should be criticised for, not because she's a woman.
Meanwhile, the Chancellor will double down on the government's commitment of continuing to slash NHS waiting times in this week's budget. Rachel Reeves will confirm today the investment for hundreds of new neighbourhood health centres to deliver healthcare directly to people's doorsteps across the country. She'll announce that 250 new health one-stop shops will bring the right local combination from GPs, nurses, dentists and pharmacists together under one roof to best meet the needs of the community, starting in the most deprived areas. Health Minister Karen Smith says morale, though, is low in the NHS.
We said in our 10-year plan that we wanted to move care out of hospital into communities where people actually live and stop people being bounced around the system. Many people will have experienced this. You've got maybe a couple of conditions, maybe diabetes and maybe heart problems, and you repeat your story, you're on different lists for different tests and so on, and many travelling into hospitals. We want to stop all that. We want to build services around people and the conditions we know they have, particularly older people and some of the conditions that arise, not for everybody, but as a result of being older, more frail, people who are more frail. So bringing all of that into your local neighbourhood and, crucially, having decent buildings in order to provide those services.
In other news, Volodymyr Zelensky is expected to visit the US at the earliest possible date in November, according to Ukraine's national security chief. Rustem Umerov says the visit will be aimed at completing the final stages of a peace agreement with Donald Trump. That's as Ukraine's capital, Kyiv, came under attack overnight, with officials saying at least 6 people have been killed. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky says Russia launched 22 missiles and 460 drones to attack Ukraine. Ukraine reportedly also carried out strikes on Russia, where officials said 3 people were killed. The latest air attacks come after days of intense talks over a US-backed plan for ending the war, which initially drew criticism from Kyiv and European leaders. A man accused of driving into crowds at Liverpool's Victory Parade is due to go on trial. Paul Doyle, who's 54, is expected to appear at Liverpool Crown Court today, charged with 31 offences related to the incident on the 26th of May. Crowds were gathered in the city to celebrate the football team's Premier League title win. Doyle is accused of dangerous driving, affray, 17 charges of attempting to cause grievous bodily harm with intent, 9 counts of causing GBH with intent and 3 counts of wounding with intent. He denies all offences relating to 29 victims aged between 6 months and 77 years old. More than 130 people reported injuries after his car collided with crowds on Water Street just after 6 o'clock in the evening. And a teenage boy is in a life-threatening condition after being shot in Sheffield. Police said the 16-year-old was taken to hospital after suffering a gunshot wound last night. The incident happened shortly before 5:20 p.m. in London Road. Officers remained in the area overnight as they carried out extensive inquiries to identify those responsible, with increased patrols in the coming days, according to a statement from South Yorkshire Police. And those are the latest GB News headlines for now. More from me in half an hour.
Tune into GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Hello, welcome back. You're watching and listening to Britain's Newsroom. We're live across the United Kingdom on GB News with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
Lots of text and emails coming in, I think.
Let's have a quick look. I haven't actually got them open yet, Andrew, so...
I expect quite a lot will be about...
Have a guess what
budget.
people are saying.
I imagine the budget will be exercising a lot of people, and possibly the BBC chairman saying he thought there was a case to make for the misleading editing of Donald Trump's speech.
Well, on that, Andrew says, not you, I assume, although who knows, maybe you've been commenting, the BBC only regret their mistake because they were caught. Well, it certainly seems like that, doesn't it?
Does.
Good point. And Sam says BBC chair is still insisting, calling it a mistake. It makes it sound like an unfortunate error. Again, another good point. It's not something they accidentally did.
They didn't do it
it's
inadvertently.
deliberate...
Somebody took the decision to deliberately splice two parts of speech which were 54 minutes apart in the speech, because he talked for over an hour, and the chairman of the BBC says you can make a case for justifying it.
Yeah.
He's not a journalist. It just shows how out of touch the BBC people are.
And some commentators have said that the whole scandal has revealed that the BBC thinks its position is not to broadcast the truth and let people make their own minds up, but to make sure people take a particular point of view that they believe is correct, whether that's about Donald Trump or the environment or trans or whatever.
Their groupthink point of view. Well, the Reithian principles, Lord Reith principles, were to educate and to inform.
Yeah.
Not to
re-educate.
Exactly.
Yes, to indoctrinate.
Terrible.
That's right. And some of the discussion yesterday in that select committee were the excuse was it's taken them so long to apologise because they were trying to work out what they were apologising for or something like that, or how to... Anyway, it's going to run on and on, isn't it, I think?
Now, there's a brand new way to take part in conversation by becoming a friend of GB News for free. Take a look.
Join the community and be part of our shows by becoming a friend of GB News. Get a direct line to join the conversations that you hear us talking about every day in our programmes by commenting on Your Say and voting in You Decide polls. Access opinion, analysis and behind-the-scenes videos as we share more from the stories that you see on TV and radio. Plus, watch our shows live and on catch-up anywhere, anytime. If you love our channel, become a friend of GB News for free by scanning the QR code or going to gbnews.com/friend. Don't just watch our programmes, come and be a part of them.
Well, it was frankly embarrassing to listen to the BBC chairman, Samir Shah, as he went before a select committee of MPs yesterday, talking about the now infamous Panorama programme where they doctored Donald Trump's speech. Take a listen to this.
I regret the mistakes that have been made and the impact that has had. I'd like to apologise to the licence fee payer who funds the BBC to deliver its mission. And I'd like to apologise to the thousands of people who work for the BBC, our staff.
Now, Mr Shah has said he won't quit his role, but should we just accept his apology and move on?
Well, let's talk now to former Africa editor at BBC World Service News, Martin Plout. Martin, good morning. He did say, the chairman, sorry, and he was apologised for the confusion and the chaos and apologising to viewers and licence payers and also to BBC staff. But he then did go on to say you could make a case for why that programme was edited in that way, which I would argue was an attempt to deliberately deceive viewers. Do you accept there is a case that could be made for editing that programme in that way?
Well, you've obviously made up your minds about it. You've already decided it's going to run and run. And
well, no, hang on. No, Mr. Plout, can I tell you, I watched the programme.
That was what you said. You just said
I watched the programme and I've read the speech. So I'm giving you my opinion. Yeah, you're quite right.
You said just
so I'm asking your opinion.
But let me respond to your point.
Thank you, if you would.
Samir Shah in my view, was wrong about that. And, that's quite evident. Anybody who has worked on the BBC news desk knows you can't do that to anybody, but particularly not to politicians. But I do think that one of the interesting things, you called it a notorious panorama. Actually, one of the most interesting things to do, which I have tried to do and I've done quite recently, is to look at it again. The amazing thing is actually how favorable it is to Trump. The overall balance is not bad. That edit is indefensible, but not the overall programme.
Why I called it notorious? It's notorious because it's caused the resignation of the Director General of the BBC and it's caused the resignation of the Director of News. That's why it's infamous. I've watched the programme. It is a good programme, but that editing was, as you say, unacceptable. Isn't it disturbing, therefore, that the chairman of the BBC says you can make a case for the way it was misedited?
Yeah, look, I agree with you. That was wrong. I don't agree with him on it, and that's the end of the matter. I can't say anything more on that. But what I would say about what happened yesterday is what you saw was the deflating of two balloons. The first one was the idea that the BBC was institutionally biased. And that came really early on when Michael Prescott, whose memo sparked this entire fandango, said, I do not think the BBC is institutionally biased. That was really interesting. So that balloon deflated. The second one was the idea that there was a right-wing coup, which the Guardian and others have been pushing. And you had people like Caroline Thompson, who was from the Financial Times. She also said, there's no sign of a coup. And you've got Robbie Gibb, who's a conservative. He pointed out that at the BBC, you leave your politics at the door, and a right-wing coup was complete nonsense. So I'm afraid two conspiracy theories deflated before the committee.
But nevertheless, I think many of our viewers are not particularly worried about those so-called conspiracy theories, but actually whether or not there is a problem at the heart of the BBC, which is that the views and the stories that it relates to the public are not in line with mainstream points of view. So I think if it was only the Donald Trump saga, then perhaps this would be a storm in a teacup. Apologise, move on. But let's take a look particularly at the trans issue. There's been a lot of criticism about how the BBC has put out materials, including for children, on its BBC Bite-sized platform, on its CBBC channel, that basically claims that there are 72 genders, or that transitioning from one sex to another is a form of freedom. Now, we know empirically this is wrong, this is not the truth, it's not scientific, and it's harmful, and yet that position has been put out by the BBC for years. If that's not institutional bias, I don't know what is.
Well, to be honest with you, the transgender issue is not one that I'm particularly across. So I'd prefer not to comment it if you don't mind. But what I am happy to comment on is the BBC Arabic service. Yeah. And Michael Prescott's report made it clear that there was indeed within the Arabic service, and he gave specific examples, repeated a bias in the way that they operated. And I think that is certainly something that should be investigated. It's been attempted to be investigated for a long time, and it's been very difficult to do because the people who are at the top of the Arabic service are not, let me be frank, Brits. They are people who've been promoted up the ladder from the Arabic service themselves, and they come under intense pressure from their community. That is a real problem. I'm sorry, I can't comment on the transgender. It's not something I'm across.
On the Arabic service, of course, we know what Prescott's report said. There was evidence again and again of known anti-Semites being given a platform on the Arab service. He made a series of criticisms. I'm not aware, perhaps you are more than me, that the BBC has done anything about it, taken any action since those concerns were raised, concerns that you clearly share.
I completely share them. And, they should have been picked up much earlier. I think the Prescott memo came out, was it January, then was discussed again in May. They should have grasped this and really gone with it, because the things that he raised were extremely serious and should have been investigated. And I completely am in support with him. But the other thing that Prescott said before the committee, he loved the BBC. He thinks it's vital. And I also support him on that.
I think a lot of people still love the BBC, despite the scandal and the discussion of the last few weeks. Do you think it has a future? I'm not just talking about claims of bias, but in a world of diverse media types, many different funding models, do you think the model of the licence fee, compulsory payment by the taxpayer? Do you think that has a future?
Well, the problem is the alternatives are, as somebody once, wasn't it, Churchill said, are too ghastly to contemplate. It's the worst model until you see all the others. And that is the difficulty. How do you fund it other than going for advertising, which would undermine ITV and Channel 4? Or would you go for, other forms of it? The problem is the BBC did make a lot of money out of a lot of things. Every time they did it, the private sector said, whoa, no, you're encroaching on our territory. And they were cut back. This was whether it was external selling programs externally, or whether it was, for example, going into magazines. The magazine sector was outraged when the BBC did that. So the problem is, what do you put in its place and still ensure that it's a public sector broadcaster who is open to criticism from everybody, and everybody has the right to do it, and yet is unbiased? And that is really, really important, because it pulls Britain together in a way that, shall we say, the Fox News, CNN divergence, which is a gulf in America. I don't want that. I want Britain which comes together, not one that is disunited.
All right, thank you so much for joining us. That's Martin Platt, who is the former Africa editor at the BBC World Service. Interesting.
Yeah, interesting points. I think that there's a really interesting point about how we want the BBC not to be so reliant on the licence fee, but on the other hand, if they do make money from other enterprises, the private sector says it's unfair because they are effectively state-funded.
Yeah, well, they are state-funded, aren't they? But as a subscription service, because if we went for a subscription service, it would probably be cheaper than the licence fee, because the licence fee is considerably more expensive than what you pay for your Netflix.
That's a very good point. It is, actually.
Now, there's only a few weeks left until Christmas. Time running out for you to enjoy it all on us. £40,000 free cash, £1,000 spent in your favourite supermarket. Here's how you do it.
There's just 30 days until Christmas, and it's the final week to see how you can enjoy it on us. That's £30,000 in tax-free cash to make 2026 fantastic. A further £10,000 cash to spend on gifts for all the family, the tree and decorations. £1,000 in vouchers to buy a slap-up Christmas lunch at your favourite supermarket. And finally, a GB News Christmas goodie bag. Plus, we're going to get it all to you in time for the big day. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB17 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 28th of November. The winner may be contacted live on GB News, week commencing the 8th of December. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Well, coming up next, find out about the backers of the Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, who apparently are plotting a coronation to replace Keir Starmer.
We'll be going through that and more with political commentators Nigel Nelson and Piers Pottinger. There'll be daggers drawn as per usual. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters. Real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Very good morning to you, Christine.
Good morning to the pair of you and all the watchers and listeners.
Yeah, absolutely. When you look back...
Oh, you still got your hat.
Well done.
Oh, good on you.
I can't...
I think it's shrunk a bit, but still.
I can't believe it's 23 years ago. Can you?
Well, if you can't, no, nor can I. And people come up to me and say whatever they say, and I usually say, do you realise how long ago that was? Oh, 10 years. What? I said, no, it was 2002. It turned people's view of me completely on its head. And I'd gone into the jungle as one of the most hated women in the country, or disliked, whatever you want to say. And people suddenly saw the real me. And, you know, basically I'm quite nice, I'm fun, I'm kind to animals, you know, and when people get to know the real me, they think, oh, well, she's not this awful old witch that the newspapers had told us she was.
Oh, you're always a battle axe, Christine. You'll always be a battle axe. Come on.
You just have to be yourself. And if yourself, your real self, can't cope with the privations and the boredom, because they deliberately make sure that you're bored most of the time. Don't forget, viewers see a fraction of it. And they also make sure that there's a mix of personalities, so that usually there's there's that sort of stuff going on. But, you know, I have to say, a tad envious. First of all, they're in the Australian sunshine, which would be nice. And I mean, what's not to like about it? You get flown out first class. We went Qantas. I have no idea what. I hope they fly the flag. I had a wonderful time. They flew my other half out because I said, if I'm going to be away for 3 weeks or so, you will have to fly Neil out as well, because otherwise I shall have to put him into care. And so they swallowed that.
GB News, the People's Channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Good morning, it's 24 minutes past 10. You're watching and listening to Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
Now here, Nigel Nelson and Piers Pottinger. Nigel, we have to talk to you first. The Times suggesting there will be a coronation after the May elections. Bye-bye, Keir Starmer. I get that bit. Useless. Got to get rid of him. You may not agree with my description of him as useless, but he is useless in my view. Is there really going to be a coronation of West Street?
I don't think there could be.
The Health Secretary.
Yeah, I don't think there could be. I mean, first of all, we go back a couple of weeks to that mad, cack-handed briefing that Number 10 or someone close to Number 10 put out, suggesting that Keir Starmer would see off a leadership challenge.
Yeah.
What that did was start one.
Streeting.
Well, yes, led by Streeting, and what it did was it started one.
Yeah.
So their timing was appalling, even if they thought they were actually on the right track, on the basis that Wes Streeting then had a media round the following day.
Yeah, the time.
He was doing a load of phone-in shows, and if you listen to people after the phone-in show, they'd never thought of Wes as a Prime Minister, and they were all saying, oh, you know, he's actually rather good. He's handling this rather well. Perhaps he is better than the Prime Minister we've got. So they actually started the whole thing. As far as whether or not Keir Starmer goes, obviously the budget tomorrow is a dodgy area for him, because should it go Liz Truss style market meltdown, that would be a problem. I think it won't. And obviously May is the crucial time because of local elections and elections in Scotland and Wales.
Piers, it feels to me, when I'm in Parliament, when I was at the Labour conference actually, I was struck by it. Normally you expect Tory conferences to be dominated by talk of getting rid of the leader, because we've done quite a lot of that. But it was the only story in town at the Labour conference, and as Nigel's saying, it's become even magnified by the botched plot to take out Streeting last week, and now they're talking of coronation.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing's nonsense. The party is splitting all over the place. Even the split party with Jeremy Corbyn's lot is splitting itself. Yes. I mean, it makes the Tory rebel bit look very calm. I mean, this is a fully fledged soap opera. Unfortunately, it's not drama, it's real. And Streeting, who had apparently a slanging match with Morgan McSweeney, the Chief of Staff of Starmer, over this whole, as Nigel quite rightly said, cack-handed handling of him planning a plot or plotting. I mean, they're all plotting. Of course they're all plotting. They all want to be Prime Minister. The thing that people talk about is Starmer stepping down. Well, Prime Ministers don't step down. They like the job too much. Once you get it, you want to keep it.
Well, Tony Blair was probably the only the...
But he was forced out, wasn't he?
He eventually, yeah, and he'd done 3 terms, so he'd done his bit.
He'd done 10 years.
But Starmer...
And Cameron had to go after Brexit. There was no question
Starmer
after the referendum.
is supposedly the leader of this shambolic party. I mean, we won't necessarily have to talk... You've talked enough about the budget, but, I mean, what a total shambles it's been to date. And it's been very damaging to the country. It's caused mayhem in the financial markets. People are packing their bags and fleeing the country before this ghastly budget comes in tomorrow. It's caused a huge amount of damage already. It's been shambolically managed. I mean, Starmer can't manage the simplest practical bit of his government. And if you look at yesterday at the CBI, Peter Kyle, the so-called business secretary, made a ridiculous speech where he sort of said, sorry, we're making such a mess of it.
Yeah.
And at the same time, he's offered apparently to give up his seat to Angela Rayner, who's also plotting to take over from Starmer. I mean, the whole thing is an absolute catastrophe.
And notice this is all happening 17 months after they won outside. I mean, that's what's so extraordinary. You expected... It's like the end of the days for your lot.
It is
absolutely nothing he's doing is working.
But there are real clear parallels, which is, you know, you mentioned all the Tory factions, and that's the truth. There was no leader or Prime Minister that could have united those because they are so philosophically, politically divided. It's exactly the same under Labour. What difference would changing Prime Minister make? They're still dealing with the same 400-odd backbench MPs.
Well, I mean, the argument, in fact, for Wes Streeting is that he would continue with the Labour manifesto. And that's the argument then
hang on, you continue with it now, because you're about to break the manifesto in a spectacular way tomorrow with tax rises.
Well, the tax... There's a question over whether you actually break the manifesto. I do accept we stretch it like a piece of elastic quite wide, but there is a question over whether it's broken. If she'd raised income tax, you're absolutely right, that would have broken the manifesto.
Earlier on this year, Rachel Reeves said she would not come back. She would not rise taxes and borrow more. She's doing exactly what she said and promised she wouldn't do.
True,
she
but that wasn't a manifesto commitment. So that's the point.
She did say, look, Nigel, we're never going to agree on this. But what about? But how can you be in your lot be in such a mess after such a little amount of time, 18 months? Because the leader's not up to it.
Well, I mean, I think that
the buck stops at the top. He's got no vision, no strategy. What does he believe in?
Yeah, I am disappointed in my government, because they have had a pretty rough time. They have made mistakes which they didn't need to make. The obvious one was taking money away from pensioners. Golden rule of politics: don't take money away from people who have it. You can always stop money going to people before they've got it. That was a mistake. The other mistake was dressing up the £5 billion from disability benefits as welfare reform. You've got to do a proper review first. Now, both those resulted in U-turns, and there is a review now of welfare benefits by Sir Stephen Timms. That's the right way round of doing it. I couldn't believe they got it the wrong way round.
Everybody knows we need welfare reform. This review, whenever there's a problem, they have a review or an inquiry. They're scared of doing anything themselves because they're incapable of doing anything.
But you must look at it first, but especially on disability benefits, you ought to look at it first to see exactly what the situation is.
Of course you ought to look at it. I mean, that's their job.
But they weren't doing that. They were just going to lop off $5 billion from the payments.
Nigel, they've now got into such a serious situation with 5 million people at supporters today on benefits not expected to work, that really only the harshest measures now, or the most stringent measures, are going to reverse the...
But you must get the right
these people have got no idea how to do this. And, you know, in every single department this government runs is a disaster. And that's how bad the situation is. And if you look at the polls, the reason that the Reform and the Greens are doing so well is that they are united parties. They stick together on a very restricted set of principles, and it resonates with the voters. The Conservatives, who were totally split and now almost irrelevant, mean that the Labour Party, which is splitting all over the place, plotting everyone against each other, making a mess of everything they do, no wonder it's a disaster. Starmer is the worst Prime Minister in history, and that's official.
Well, we'll let you come in on that, Nigel, next time, but that's all for now from our panel. Here's your 60-second news update.
He was going to rush to defend him, actually.
Okay, no, he wasn't exactly itching to get in. I was going to give him the opportunity. But we do need to get to our 60-second news update with Tatiana Sanchez.
Thank you. The top stories. Rachel Reeves has insisted she will still be Chancellor in 2 years' time as she hit out at what she's called misogyny in public life and urged Labour MPs to unite behind her tax-raising budget. Meanwhile, the Chancellor will double down on the government's commitment of continuing to slash NHS waiting times in this week's budget. Rachel Reeves will today confirm the investment for hundreds of new neighbourhood health centres to deliver healthcare directly to people's doorsteps across the country. Volodymyr Zelensky is expected to visit the US at the earliest possible date in November, according to Ukraine's national security chief. It's aimed at completing the final stages of a peace agreement with Donald Trump. That's as Ukraine's capital, Kyiv, came under attack overnight, with officials saying at least 6 people have been killed. And Heathrow's £33 billion plan for a third runway has been chosen as the plan to expand the airport. According to the Transport Secretary, Heidi Alexander, it means the competing plan for a shorter runway has been rejected. Heathrow says the project will be 100% privately financed through higher airline costs, and no taxpayer money will be used to build the runway or the associated infrastructure. And those are the latest headlines. For now, more from me at the top of the hour.
Take the GB News family with you on any device. As long as you have an internet connection, tune into GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond.
And we've got some breaking news. The Father Ted creator Graeme Linhan, he's been cleared at Westminster Magistrates Court of harassing transgender activist Sophia Brooks, but was found guilty of criminal damage to the mobile phone. Up next.
My critics are misogynists, and I'll still be there here in 2 years' time. Those are the defiant words from the Chancellor. Do you stand by her? This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. It's going to be the sunniest day of the week for many of us today, but it is feeling colder out there, and there is a frost expected more widely this evening. We've got a northerly wind across the UK, particularly across coastal areas, and this will drag in a few showers to eastern areas of Scotland, England, as well as southwestern areas of Wales, down in the southwest of England too, down into Cornwall. But for many of us, it will be a dry and clear day. Plenty of sunshine out there, but with that northerly wind, it will feel chillier. Temperatures in the single figures wherever you are, and particularly if you're exposed to that onshore wind off the North Sea, it's going to be feeling colder than it has done over the past few days. And now into this evening, there's very little in the way of change. Another dry evening to come for many areas. A few showers, though, across the far north and west of Scotland. We've got a weather front approaching from the north and west that will take centre stage throughout Wednesday afternoon. Across Northern Ireland, we'll start to see some cloud thicken, but further inland across Scotland, northern areas of England, we'll start to see that frost setting in this evening quite early on, I think. And a few showers could come further inland across eastern areas of England this evening. But for many of us, it is going to be a dry night, and as I said, the frost will really start to set in. You can see those blues across the map. That's showing we're expecting temperatures to dip below zero, so it's quite a widespread affair by Wednesday morning away from the far southeast of England. So we could be down as low as -6 or -7 across parts of Scotland, -5 across rural areas of Wales and parts of the Midlands. As I said, on Wednesday we've got a weather front on the way. Now that will push into parts of Northern Ireland, much of western Scotland throughout Wednesday morning. The rain's not going to be particularly heavy, but there's going to be a lot of cloud with it. And with this rain and cloud, temperatures will be on the rise. You can see the wind direction starting to shift to more of a southwesterly, so up to 11 or 10 degrees. But in the south and east, although it's dry, it's still going to be a chilly one. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Britain, for sharing over 5 million comments on your say. Because when you talk, we listen.
Good morning, this is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. The M8 eastbound faces congestion due to overrun roadworks near Junction 2. On the A470 southbound between Nantgarw and Corriton, heavy congestion is causing significant delays. In Derbyshire, a collision on the A50 eastbound between the A38 and A514 has closed one lane, causing 1.5-hour delays. In Cambridgeshire, a road incident on the A14 at Junction 33 westbound entry slip has led to lane closures. The M20 westbound at Junction 9 in Kent is closed due to an accident. And on the trains, Gatwick Express faces delays between Haywards Heath and Burgess Hill. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
It's 22 minutes to 11. You're watching Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Well, the Chancellor is going to cut... I mean, what was the point of having a budget? We know so much already. She's going to cut the tax-free ISA limit from 20,000 to 12,000 tomorrow.
Well, this comes as Rachel Reeves is dropping plans for a Brit ISA, which would have focused on UK investments.
We're going to speak to the economics editor of The Spectator, Michael Simmons. Michael, morning to you. Before we talk about the ISA and cutting the limit, which will impact, I think, up to 14 million people, have you ever known a more chaotic, shambolic build-up to a budget in your lifetime?
Certainly not in my lifetime, and I've been looking back at some budget history over the last sort of 150 years, and the only comparable one is Hugh Dalton, who accidentally leaked some of the budget to the Daily Star and then had to resign over it. And I think this Chancellor has leaked a lot more than he did.
Yeah, and it only made the stop press of the Daily Star, and he told the Daily Star as he was literally wandering into the chamber to make the speech, so he didn't think there was any prospect it was ever going to be reported anywhere. So he was an accidental leaker, as opposed to Rachel Reeves, who's been leaking en masse.
Yeah, it's awful. I'm totally sick of it. I just want tomorrow to be over because, you know, as you say, we basically think we know everything now. And OK, that's one thing, what it's done to sort of the media coverage. But this has had a real effect in the markets. I mean, if you look at the London housing market, that's basically just ground to a complete halt from the very slow pace it was moving at anyway, because people are just thinking, so much is being talked about. There's so much uncertainty. We hear about one tax rise on Monday, and then on Tuesday, it's actually the other things happening. So investors, people selling houses just don't want to make decisions. And I think it's fair to say that this will have had a real, impact on our GDP over the last 12 weeks, because she's just ground the economy to a halt, because people understandably have just had all this uncertainty, and people don't like making investment decisions in uncertain times.
And even retailers have been quoted today as saying that it's ruined their Black Friday sales, because people often buy big ticket items on Black Friday that they wouldn't normally buy the rest of the year, beds, kitchens, things like that. But of course they haven't, because they're worried about what's coming next. So do you think we'll see actually a downturn in retail sales as well as the housing market, jobs market, etc.?
Yeah, I think potentially. And I think the Treasury's comm strategy on this has totally backfired, because they rolled the pitch on this idea of increasing the basic rate of income tax, and then they pulled that back, thinking that would be good news, because when they do, fiscal drag, when they freeze the thresholds, they had internal polling that suggested that most voters don't realise that that's a tax increase until it's too late and they see it on their payslip. They thought they would get away with that. But what they've done instead is created so much noise that I think they've actually provided some service to financial education, because I think everyone now understands that increase the rates or not, whatever they do on the thresholds is a tax hike. And I think they didn't want, people to be aware of that. But by creating so much noise, we all know that now.
And talk to us about ISAs. These were invented by Gordon Brown's... I think Gordon Brown was Chancellor when they came in. So a lot of people, 14 million people, I think, have a cash ISA. They can invest £20,000 a year and they pay no interest. You don't have to pay any interest on any tax on the interest. Now, she's going to cut that, slash that almost by half. Why would you penalise people who are trying to save and put, as my mum would say, put money away for a rainy day?
Well, she's boxed herself into a corner. I mean, she spoke about this at her Mansion House speech a few months ago, and ostensibly she made a case which I don't disagree with, which is this country, unlike America, doesn't invest enough. We all just put our money, you know, in cash savings where they're not in the stock market. And that's partly why people are not as wealthy as they are in other countries. And that would be a reasonable argument. But I think that's not why she's doing this now. It's because they're not going for this broad increase in taxes. She's forced to, you know, look for something here, look for something else over there in these little, you know, niche areas. And the result of that is that the effect is felt much more, you know, stronger for people that do have cash ISAs or people whose pension pots might be raided or whatever. And the effect of that, I'm sorry, is that it just will slow down the economy. It's going to slow down spending and things. So I think it's just a symptom of this kind of smorgasbord budget that she's going for.
And the reason she has been boxed into the corner, the reason that she is going to have to raise taxes, whichever way she decides to do that, is because she won't, or rather can't, cut the constant increase in spending that we're now seeing. We've had reported today 5 million people now are on benefits with no requirement to work. Everybody knows this is unsustainable. Every economist knows this is unsustainable. What's going to happen if she refuses to tackle the growing benefits and welfare bill?
Well, this is where I think we get into the risk of a market freakout, because the Treasury seem to think that, you know, it's all about handling the comms, balancing the books, getting the headroom right, and then our borrowing costs will somehow come down. But if you look at the longer term borrowing costs that are, you know, staying way higher than any other advanced economy, it's because, as you say, that the markets are so concerned about our soaring spending. But more than that, they're freaked out by Labour's lack of political ability to get any cuts through. That's why the yields soared earlier in the year, was because they saw the U-turn on winter fuel. They saw the U-turn on what was only a £5 billion cut to an £100 billion disability welfare budget. And they think it doesn't matter who the Chancellor is. It doesn't matter if the Chancellor says she's, you know, cares about fiscal responsibility. If she's got no chance of using a massive majority to get it through, because the, you know, Labour backbenchers now seem to completely control the government, then there's no chance of the fiscal restraint that we need. And I think there's a real risk that if markets don't see that change sometime soon, then we could see yields going even higher.
If you were Chancellor tomorrow, Michael, what is the one thing you would announce that you're pretty sure Rachel Reeves isn't going to do?
She's definitely not going to do this, but she definitely should abolish stamp duty. It's the stupidest tax we have. It was meant to be a wealth tax, and now almost, you know, loads of people in the housing market pay it. It completely bungs up mobility in this country. It bungs up the labour market. I would scrap that right now.
And there's been a resurgence in this idea of the Laffer curve, as in the more money the government takes off you, the higher the taxes are, eventually the government's income will fall. Do you think Rachel Reeves is listening to that kind of explanation?
Well, no, she seems to be completely ignoring it. But I think we're pretty far up the curve. We see this all the time in the data about first the non-doms leaving, and then, you know, just the millionaires leaving. And I think we are going to get to a point where middle earners are actually squeezed to the point where middle earners start looking at leaving too. And this is the fundamental question that not just the government, by the way, we as voters have to grapple with. If we want to keep electing governments that are content with having a state as large as it is, then, I'm sorry, taxes have to go up across the board on everyone. Because if you look at the lower earners in this country, their tax burden is actually relatively low compared to, say, Scandinavian countries. It's the high earners that are paying the bulk of the tax. So if we want to continue being a high spending country, then something's got to change there. But, you know, that's not what I would do. I'd rather see us shrinking the state a bit.
Well, Michael Simmons, thank you very much.
Pity you're not making the speech tomorrow, Michael, I can tell you. And that would be the same from most GB News viewers and listeners, I think. Thanks, yes. Michael Simmons. Now, up next.
If you're fed up of being stuck on an NHS waiting list, find out about Labour's latest solution.
But first, if you want that elusive holiday sun, here's the forecast.
I forecast a perfect holiday in the sun.
Weather looking good then?
For sure, and no worries about our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello, we've got some wet weather pushing through the Mediterranean this week. It should turn drier by the time we get to the weekend, however. In the Canary Islands, it's looking relatively dry, highs around 19 degrees. A little bit cooler towards Lisbon, 11 or 12 degrees. Now, here's that wet weather I mentioned. It's moving across parts of Italy, Slovenia, as well as Croatia and into Greece later on this week. But parts of Italy, as well as Croatia, should get drier by Friday or Saturday. Temperatures remaining a little below average. Bye-bye.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Britain's economy is at a crossroads.
And this budget day, every decision counts.
From taxes and rent to the cost of living.
Whatever the outcome, the GB News family will be there.
With expert analysis breaking down what it means for you.
Budget day all day tomorrow.
Only here on the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Bold. They are under no illusion.
Ray.
Are you a human trafficker?
Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get us on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What we're going to do now, they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain. So he can say whatever he wants. A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country. There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor. Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now, the Chancellor is going to double down on the government's commitment to cut NHS waiting lists in this week's budget.
GB News' political correspondent Catherine Forster joins us now. Catherine, tell us about these plans from the Health Department.
Well, yes, today they're announcing 250 neighbourhood health centres, which they say are going to help people access treatment locally, dentists, pharmacists, doctors, all in one place. Of course, it's going to take years for that to come in. But more broadly, the Chancellor is saying she's got 3 priorities for the budget: tackle the cost of living, bring NHS waiting lists down, and tackle the cost of the debt. But look, the waiting lists are still pretty horrendous. So at the moment, we've got 7.4 million on NHS waiting lists. It's down 200,000, yes, since Labour came into power, but it's still enormous. Wes Streeting last week was sounding very upbeat, saying, look, we've got 2,500 more doctors, cancer treatments improving. and so on and so forth. But the Public Accounts Committee had a report out last week saying that basically progress in getting these waiting lists down has pretty much stalled, and the government are getting rid of NHS England. They were critical of that. They said that they didn't think that that was a good use of resources, compared it to sort of potential HS2 problems. So they were very, very scathing. And of course, people want to see and feel that things are getting better. I mean, to get an appointment at your local doctor's, I don't know if it applies to most people, but I can't just ring up and ask for an appointment, even a routine appointment, because you get sent away to fill in a very long form. You can't ever go along now and talk about 2 or 3 things you've been storing up, because they will only talk about one thing at a time. So for all the government is trumpeting these successes, are people feeling that the NHS is getting better?
It does seem familiar as well, this these drop-in sort of all-in-one centres. Have they announced this before? It wouldn't be the first time.
Well, it's not dissimilar. I was at one in Wood Green a couple of years ago with Therese Coffey, who at the time was the Health Secretary and Deputy Prime Minister.
They were
called, yes, they were called Community Diagnostic Centres.
That's what I thought.
And it was, again, about bringing lots of services together, making them more accessible. There were scans and things that you could get done. But the Public Accounts Committee, again, has said that some £3 billion was spent on those, but it didn't necessarily feed through to the results. And, of course, one of the biggest problems for the NHS is elderly people stuck in hospital at vast cost to the taxpayer, who cannot be discharged because there isn't the care in place in the community. And, of course, social care, that issue that's been so difficult for so many governments, has yet again been kicked down the road.
Catherine Forster, thank you very much. I think some of those diagnostic centres have been pretty successful in clearing backlogs of things like mammograms, but yes, it obviously hasn't fed into the overall system. Well, still ahead.
Father Ted co-creator Graeme Linhan cleared of harassing transgender actress Sophia Brooks, but guilty of criminal damage to his mobile phone, not their mobile phone.
Absolutely. Is this a victory for free speech? Well, this is Britain's Newsroom, Britain's favourite morning show on GB News.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. It's going to be the sunniest day of the week for many of us today, but it is feeling colder out there, and there is a frost expected more widely this evening. We've got a northerly wind across the UK, particularly across coastal areas, and this will drag in a few showers to eastern areas of Scotland, England, as well as southwestern areas of Wales, down in the southwest of England too, down into Cornwall. But for many of us, it will be a dry and clear day. Plenty of sunshine out there, but with that northerly wind, it will feel chillier. Temperatures in the single figures wherever you are, and particularly if you're exposed to that onshore wind off the North Sea, it's going to be feeling colder than it has done over the past few days. And now into this evening, there's very little in the way of change. Another dry evening to come for many areas. A few showers, though, across the far north and west of Scotland. We've got a weather front approaching from the north and west that will take centre stage throughout Wednesday afternoon. Across Northern Ireland, we'll start to see some cloud thicken, but further inland across Scotland, northern areas of England, we'll start to see that frost setting in this evening quite early on, I think. And a few showers could come further inland across eastern areas of England this evening. But for many of us, it is going to be a dry night. And as I said, the frost will really start to set in. You can see those blues across the map. That's showing we're expecting temperatures to dip below zero. So it's quite a widespread affair by Wednesday morning, away from the far southeast of England. So we could be down as low as -6 or -7 across parts of Scotland, -5 across rural areas of Wales and parts of the Midlands. As I said, on Wednesday, we've got a weather front on the way. Now, that will push into parts of Northern Ireland, much of western Scotland throughout Wednesday morning. The rain's not going to be particularly heavy, but there's going to be a lot of cloud with it. And with this rain and cloud, temperatures will be on the rise. You can see the wind direction starting to shift to more of a southwesterly, so we're up to 11 or 10 degrees. But in the south and east, although it's dry, it's still going to be a chilly one. Bye-bye.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
It's the final week to see how you can enjoy Christmas on us. First, we'll give you an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash. Then we'll give you a further £10,000 cash to spend on all your Christmas presents, even the tree. Christmas lunch, that's on us too, with £1,000 in shopping vouchers to spend at your favourite supermarket. Finally, a GB News Christmas goodie bag. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB17 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 28th of November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Bold.
They are under no illusion.
Ray.
Are you a human trafficker?
Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get us on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What we're going to do now, they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Oh, you
bastard. That was very bad. It is 11 o'clock on Tuesday, the 25th of November. This is Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
Well, the Father Ted co-creator Graeme Linhan is cleared of harassing the transgender activist Sophia Brooks, but guilty of criminal damage to his mobile phone.
And the Chancellor's come out fighting, branding her critics misogynists, and she's urging Labour MPs to get behind her budget. Just over 24 hours to go. Is it going to be the Christmas Grinch from the Chancellor?
Each of us must do our bit for the security of our country and the brightness of its future.
Well, left-wing MPs have been out in Parliament Square with an effigy of Rachel Reeves calling for higher taxes on the highest earners. Here's the Green Party leader, Zach Polanski.
Rachel Reeves keeps talking about tough choices, but these are always tough choices for working class people, for disabled people, for migrants. When are we going to see tough choices for multimillionaires and billionaires?
And the government is doubling down on its commitment to cut NHS waiting lists. They've announced 250 new health one-stop shops.
And we understand that Rachel Reeves is planning to cut the annual tax-free cash ISA limit from £20,000 a year to £12,000 in what could be a huge blow to savers.
I regret the mistakes that have been made.
That was the BBC Chairman Samir Shah with a sort of apology to licence repairs over the Trump documentary, but he still insists it could be justified the way people were misled over what the President said.
And is Black Friday one big scam? Well, new research shows that 8 in 10 Black Friday deals are the same price or even cheaper at other times of the year.
He's got a flair for it, has Zach Polanski, for getting in the news. When did a Green Party leader last get into the headlines the day before a budget?
Yes, that's true, and he's not even an MP.
He's not even an MP. Effigy of the Chancellor. Clever, I've never seen that before, outside Parliament the day before the budget. And he had 4 or 5 Labour MPs with him, which will fuel speculation. The newspapers will write this tomorrow for sure. Are Labour MPs going to defect to the Green Party? That would be a blow to Starmer.
Indeed, and they no longer really are a Green Party. I can't remember the last time I heard them talk about the environment or cleaning up rivers or perfectly sensible things like that.
He talks about the cost of living crisis.
Cost of living crisis, getting rid of billionaires, Israel and Gaza. It's a very far left agenda. They're increasingly popular. But what worries me is their populist economics, this idea that if you just tax billionaires, we can all have more to live on, which of course doesn't make sense mathematically, but I can understand why young people particularly are drawn to that.
But don't forget as well, Polanski said since he's been leader of the Green Party, he understands and thinks it's legitimate for people on universal credit to shoplift. Outrageous. It is not legitimate, it's illegal, and he should be condemning it.
Absolutely. Well, we'd love to hear what you think about that and all the other topics we're discussing today. Send your views and post your comments to
gbnews.com/yoursave. But first, here's the headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Andrew, thank you very much. The top story. Some breaking news this hour that Father Ted creator Graeme Linhan has been cleared of harassment but found guilty of criminal damage to the phone of a trans activist. Mr Linhan deliberately whacked Sophia Brooks's phone out of her hand and threw it on a road outside a conference last year. His trial was told in September. Westminster Magistrates Court also heard that the Irish comedy writer relentlessly posted abusive comments about Sophia Brooks on social media. Well, today, though, the judge said that Mr Linhan's social media posts did not amount to harassment, but that he was guilty of criminal damage in relation to the phone. He denied both charges. During the trial, Mr Linhan told the court he believed exposing the tactics of trans activists was in the public interest and that knocking the phone was a reflex response. He said his life had been made hell by transgender activists and journalists because of his views about gender identity. Elsewhere, Rachel Reeves has insisted she'll still be Chancellor in 2 years' time as she hit out at what she's called misogyny in public life and urged Labour MPs to unite behind her tax-raising budget. Ms Reeves pledged that she wouldn't let her critics beat her and said Labour needs to show voters it deserves a second term in power, but would only be able to do so if MPs stick together. She said that leaks in the run-up to the budget had been incredibly destabilising. That's after concerns were raised about tomorrow's budget, which is expected to raise £30 billion worth of tax. Addressing the Parliamentary Labour Party last night, Ms Reeves argued the budget should be regarded as a package and not a pick and mix, where MPs like the cola bottles but not the fruit salad. Shadow Levelling Up Secretary James Cleverly spoke to GB News this morning.
I don't think it's legitimate to criticise person for basically their chromosomes. So I'm critical of her because she was completely dishonest in the lead up to the general election about their tax plans, that she has ramped up taxes, she is killing jobs, this constant briefing, U-turning, re-briefing, re-U-turning is crushing confidence in the British economy just at the time when we need it to be most active. These are the things she should be criticised for, not because she's a woman.
Meanwhile, MPs have been out in Parliament Square this morning with an effigy of Rachel Reeves calling for higher taxes on the highest earners. Here's Green Party leader Zach Polanski.
Rachel Reeves keeps talking about tough choices, but these are always tough choices for working class people, for disabled people, for migrants. When are we going to see tough choices for multimillionaires and billionaires?
That says the Chancellor will double down on the government's commitment of continuing to slash NHS waiting times in this week's budget. Rachel Reeves will confirm today the investment for hundreds of new neighbourhood health centres to deliver healthcare directly to people's doorsteps across the country. She'll announce that 250 new health one-stop shops will bring the right local combination from GPs, nurses, dentists and pharmacists together under one roof to best meet the needs of the community, starting in the most deprived areas. Health Health Minister Karen Smith says morale, though, is low in the NHS.
We said in our 10-year plan that we wanted to move care out of hospital into communities where people actually live and stop people being bounced around the system. Many people will have experienced this. You've got maybe a couple of conditions, maybe diabetes and maybe heart problems, and you repeat your story, you're on different lists for different tests and so on, and many travelling into hospitals. We want to stop all that. We want to build services around people and the conditions we know they have, particularly older people and some of the conditions that arise, not for everybody, but as a result of being older, more frail, people who are more frail. So bringing all of that into your local neighbourhood and, crucially, having decent buildings in order to provide those services.
A man accused of driving into crowds at Liverpool's Victory Parade is going to go on trial today. 54-year-old Paul Doyle is expected to appear at Liverpool Crown Court, charged with 31 offences related to the incident on the 26th of May. Crowds were gathered in the city to celebrate the football team's Premier League title win. Doyle's accused of dangerous driving, a fray, 17 charges of attempting to cause grievous bodily harm with intent, 9 counts of causing GBH with intent and 3 counts of wounding with intent. He denies all offences relating to 29 victims aged between 6 months and 77 years old. More than 130 people reported injuries after his car collided with crowds on Water Street just after 6 o'clock in the evening. Volodymyr Zelensky is expected to visit the US at the earliest possible date in November, according to Ukraine's National Security Chief. Rustem Umerov says the visit will be aimed at completing the final stages of a peace agreement with Donald Trump. That's as Ukraine's capital, Kyiv, came under attack overnight, with officials saying at least 6 people have been killed. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky says Russia launched 22 missiles and 460 drones to attack Ukraine. Ukraine reportedly also carried out strikes on Russia, where officials said 3 people were killed. The latest air attacks come after days of intense talks over a US-backed plan for ending the war, which initially drew criticism from Kyiv and European leaders. And Heathrow Airport's £33 billion plan for a third runway has been chosen as the plan to expand the airport, according to the Transport Secretary Heidi Alexander. It means the competing plan for a shorter runway has been rejected. Heathrow says the project will be 100% privately financed through higher airline costs, and no taxpayer money will be used to build the runway. But it will require rerouting the M25 motorway, one of the busiest in the country, and the demolition of nearby villages. And those are the latest headlines for now. More in half an hour.
Tune in to GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
And here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound will buy you $1.3138 and €1.1387 euros. The price of gold is £3,145 and 43 pence per ounce, and the FTSE 100 is at 9,534 points.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Hello, good morning. Welcome back. This is Britain's Newsroom. We're live across the United Kingdom on GB News with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
I think they've been getting in touch.
They certainly have. Well, Margaret says this is about the budget and all the leaks that we've had. She says the leaks were deliberate thinking. It will reduce the impact when it's delivered. Esther says Reeves keeps changing the budget before she gives it to reduce the noise when she changes it soon after.
I think it's more simplistic than that, Miriam. I think this was the only way they could establish, because communication has broken down with their MPs, whether their MPs would put up with it.
Yeah.
As simple as, and I think if they had cut the basic rate of income, I think there would have been an unprecedented revolt, and you'd have got dozens of Labour MPs refusing to support the finance bill. That can't happen.
Yes. No, I think the budget is the only vote that's a confidence vote, isn't it?
If it had fallen, there'd be a confidence vote, and probably Starmer's government would have fallen. So that's why they ditched the income tax cut, because there were so many Labour MPs saying, you try that, I'm not voting for it. They'd have abstained.
So I also think that she's very worried about the bond markets, and one of the reasons for flying a kite, putting up all these ideas out into the public, is to see how they react, because things are now so tight. We're in so much debt, we're paying so much for our borrowing, that if the financial markets get jittery, £1 exactly, then there will be serious consequences. But because it looks like she'll be introducing lots of small tax rises for various different obscure things, it could take quite a lot of analysis, a day or two, by economists before we really work out what's going to happen.
And this happened with George Osborne's budget in 2012, when he then had to abandon what we called the pasty tax, the caravan tax, and there was also a tax on giving to charity. Do you remember? Oh, and we had a Tory treasurer, the Tory treasurer, going on the radio at the weekend, the BBC radio at the weekend on the Sunday, 3 days after the budget, saying this is a terrible thing to do. Yeah. They had to abandon it.
Yeah.
So George Osborne's budget, and he was meant to be a sure-footed Chancellor, unravelled because of all these small changes, and I think that's what will happen with Reeves.
Yes, and if it isn't something very clear in the budget, it will probably be analysed within an inch of its life over the next couple of days.
The big book is called the Red Book, and people will be going through it line by line by line, and they will find, lurking beneath the waves, the icebergs.
Indeed. Well, we've also been talking, of course, about the BBC. Chris says, GB News presenters talking about biased reporting. How ironic.
We make no secret of what we are, but we are not paid for by the licence payer.
Indeed. And we do try to provide balance, both sides of the argument, even if viewers don't.
We invite Labour Cabinet Ministers on all the time. We invite Liberal Democrats on all the time. If they choose not to come on, it's up to them.
And we do sometimes get your says criticising what the left-wingers say, but they're here to provide balance.
And, of course, there's a new way to take part in that conversation by becoming a friend of GB News for free. Take a look.
Join the community and be part of our shows by becoming a friend of GB News. Get a direct line to join the conversations that you hear us talking about every day in our programmes by commenting on your say and voting in You Decide polls. Access opinion, analysis and behind-the-scenes videos as we share more from the stories that you see on TV and radio. Plus, watch our shows live and on catch-up anywhere, anytime. If you love our channel, become a friend of GB News for free by scanning the QR code or going to gbnews.com/friend. Don't just watch our programmes, come and be a part of them.
Now, if you heard an unfortunate word by me, that's because I was in the wrong place at the wrong time. So we won't repeat it, so grovelling apologies from me. No excuse. Now, Father Ted writer Graeme Linhan has been cleared of harassing a transgender activist. We're going to speak to the GB News Home and Security editor, Mark White, who has the latest. Mark.
Well, good morning to you. There's no doubt that this is a positive, a good outcome for Graeme Linhan, who had been accused of harassing this trans woman, Sophia Brooks, a trans activist, between the 11th and the 27th of October last year. The prosecution had claimed that Graeme Linhan had made repeated and abusive social media posts about Sophia Brooks. Things came to a head, though, on the 19th of October last year at the Battle of Ideas conference in Westminster, which this trans activist had attended. That event was taking repeated photographs of delegates at the event. Outside the event, the court heard how Graeme Linhan had swiped the mobile phone that Sophia Brooks had been using to take photographs of Mr. Linhan and others who were attending the event. During that confrontation, the court was told that Sophia Brooks said to Graeme Linhan, "Why do you think it's acceptable to call teenagers domestic terrorists?" To which Mr. Linhan responded, calling Miss Brooks a sissy, porn-watching scumbag, a groomer and a disgusting incel. At that point, Sophia Brooks responded, "You're the incel, you're divorced." So things got rather heated. As I say, the phone was swiped out of this trans activist's hands. He was found guilty of criminal damage with regard to the damage suffered by the phone, but on that more substantive count of harassing this individual, he was found not guilty. And in fact, Graeme Linhan and his evidence had said that his life had been made a living hell by trans activists, constantly targeting him and others. We heard people giving evidence, including Catherine Harris from the LGB Alliance, who spoke about the conduct of Sophia Brooks during this event at the Battle of Ideas, said that this trans activist was taking photographs of everyone in attendance at that event. She believed, Catherine Harris, that it was a deliberate attempt to harass and intimidate those delegates at this conference. So as I say, having listened to all the evidence, the judge here at Westminster Magistrates Court in Court Number 1 found Graeme Linhan not guilty on that substantive charge of harassment. They've just been discussing issues around costs with regard to the criminal damage, but we expect that Graeme Linhan at some point in the near future will come from the court. He may have a few words to say.
Mark White, thank you very much for that report.
While a major new clinical trial will run for the first time, rigorously the tests, risks and benefits of puberty-blocking drugs for gender-questioning children.
Well, the study will be run by King's College London and it will involve around 220 young people under 16. Well, we're joined now by the Labour MP for Pendle and Clitheroe, Jonathan Hinder. Jonathan, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us on the show. What's your view about this clinical trial? Do you think it is ethical to test these drugs on children?
Absolutely not. I think it's morally wrong, and I'm absolutely staggered that it's got through any sort of ethics committee or panel. And that was exactly my thought when the indefinite ban was announced about this time last year by the Secretary of State, that actually the discussion of a trial would not amount to anything, because this cannot possibly be ethical. And I think it's important to explain to your viewers exactly what we're talking about here. Some of the terminology could be quite opaque. We're talking about 10 and 11-year-olds, primary school children who are medically well, and this trial is going to test stopping their normal biological development on the grounds that they have something which is described in the trial as gender incongruence. Now, I said this on the back of the Supreme Court judgment, that we were doing so well in breaking down gender stereotypes in this country. We can have boys who like to play with Barbies, and we can have girls who like to play football, and that's great. You don't need to live within the confines of those gender stereotypes. What this says is that actually that's all important. And a 10 or 11-year-old can actually reasonably consent to having their normal biological development being stopped. I think that is wholly unethical. It is immoral. And I'm absolutely astonished that I'm sitting here talking about a state-sanctioned trial of this starting in the new year. It is wholly wrong. We have seen what happened with the Tavistock clinic. That was not out in the open in the way that it should have been. It was a scandal. And now to have it being sanctioned by the state that, yes, primary school children who are perfectly well, there is no physical problem with their body, we are going to experiment on you by stopping you from developing as you normally would. I think it's shameful.
Can I ask you, bearing in mind, and well said for what you've just said, because I could completely agree with everything you said. I was amazed to hear the Secretary of State for Health, Wes Streeting, who I thought was on the right side of the argument here, supporting this clinical trial on these children who you point out are primary school-age children.
So was I. So was I. I was so hopeful that he had moved into the right place on this issue. But it seems that he is willing for this to go ahead, and I think it is totally wrong. I met with him, with other colleagues who are like-minded a couple of weeks ago. It was clear that the message wasn't quite getting through, that no trial of this kind could be unethical, but I was still hopeful that the processes which lead to clinical trials of this type normally normally for all sorts of different medicines would mean that it wouldn't happen. So I'm absolutely dismayed. I'm raising this issue with government ministers, and I'm attending an emergency meeting with cross-party colleagues this lunchtime to talk about how we stop it from happening.
And how big is that group within the Labour Party? Because certainly in the last Parliament, there were vanishingly few Labour MPs who were willing to stand up for children on that issue. That clearly has changed. But what kind of size of the parliamentary party are against this trial?
Well, there are a significant number, but as ever with this issue, people are scared of speaking out. And we have to be brave and say, as parliamentarians, are we going to stand by while primary school children are being experimented on in this unethical way? So I would urge colleagues who agree with me, and I know there are many of them, some have spoken out, some have not, to also voice their concerns, because this cannot be allowed to stand. So you're right, there has been a shift in the Labour Party on this issue, but nowhere near enough. And clearly, for a Labour government to be doing this, we still need to move a very long way to get to the right place.
Just very briefly, who are these Labour MPs scared of? Is it being called bigots, or are they scared of the Labour whip saying you've got to keep quiet?
I don't necessarily think it's a whips issue or a discipline issue in that regard necessarily. I mean, you'd have to ask them. But I think it's clear when you do put your head above the parapet, as I have since I became a Member of Parliament, then you will get a huge amount of abuse. And I'm lucky that I don't get anywhere near as much as my female colleagues do, which I think tells you quite a lot about some of the people on a particular side of this debate. But actually, you know, we need politicians to be courageous, to be bold, to not hide behind, you know, process and so forth. We elect politicians to make decisions for us on behalf of the people. And I think when the public find out what is going on here, because it's not been as much in the news as I think it should have been, I think they will be outraged. And I think it is incumbent on politicians, whether it be backbenchers or government ministers, to stop this from happening.
Jonathan Hinder, thank you for being brave and sticking your head above the parapet.
He's the Labour MP for Pendle and Clitheroe. More, please, from that. We have to read out a statement from the Department of Health and Social Care, who say,
young people with gender incongruence
whatever that means,
need access to high-quality, safe and effective care. We are following the CAS review, which was clear that the evidence on care for these children is lacking, and proposed this research to help provide it. Medical care must always be based on solid evidence, and children's safety must come first. Well, I would suggest it's not safe to give a drug to children who have no medical problems. That could cause them life.
They're 10 years old. Now, just a few weeks left until Christmas. This is your chance to win a fabulous Christmas prize from GB News.
There's just 30 days until Christmas, and it's the final week to see how you can enjoy it on us. That's £30,000 in tax-free cash to make 2026 fantastic. A further £10,000 cash to spend on gifts for all the family, the tree and decorations. £1,000 in vouchers to buy a slap-up Christmas lunch at your favourite supermarket. And finally, a GB News Christmas goodie bag. Plus, we're going to get it all to you in time for the big day. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB17 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 28th of November. The winner may be contacted live on GB News, week commencing the 8th of December. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Away the gold reserve.
Well, we're joined now in the studio by our panel, Nigel Nelson and Piers Pottinger. Good morning to you both. Well, I think something's happening tomorrow. I can't remember what it is, Piers.
Well, tomorrow, I hope Rachel Reeves' husband has got a good supply of butter and jam.
And wine.
No, butter and jam, because after tomorrow, his wife, Rachel, is going to be toast. It's the end. That's quite good. It's the end of her career. I mean, she's made a total mess of it. The previous budget, she said she wasn't going to come back and tax more and spend more. She's doing exactly that. So she's a proven, self-confessed liar. She's made a total shambles in the build-up to this. It's going to be awful for everyone tomorrow because, like all true socialists, all she can do is take money off people and then waste it, which is what she's going to do. It's going to be catastrophic. Worse than that, the Office of Budget Responsibility, who should be called the Office of Budget Irresponsibility, and surprise, surprise, their forecasts are wrong again, and they have already said, incredibly, that they are going to lower their forecasts for every year of the rest of this Parliament immediately following the budget. So that is, in fact, saying that there's going to be no growth for the future of this Parliament. This is a government elected promising growth. And there's going to be no growth. It's going to be a catastrophic budget. It's the end of her career. She certainly should not be, she's not fit to be Chancellor. She's not capable of the job. She should be removed from office swiftly.
Well, everybody speaks. There will be winners. There will be winners from this budget. We know that pensioners will get £550 extra. We know, well, we're pretty sure...
That's because they're keeping the Tory triple lock.
Yeah, they are. Yes, and as a result of that, the earnings
tried to take their winter fuel payment off them.
Yeah, and they shouldn't have done that, as we've discussed before. So pensioners better off. NHS patients will see shorter waiting lists.
Rubbish.
Rail travellers won't have to pay any more money to travel on the train. Prescriptions will be frozen. So there are going to be winners from the budget.
Sorry, that's not true. They've said only 45% of rail fares will be frozen.
That's right.
So the majority of rail fares will go up. So it's not true to say that.
Well,
they also made a
commuter lines into cities.
By the way, where was the famous promise about the lower energy prices? We're still paying the highest energy prices.
At the moment, question mark over that about what she might do on VAT on energy.
She said she was going to. She said a few weeks ago that she was, and one of her many pre-budget leaks or suggestions or hints or whatever it was, she said, oh, there'll be lower energy prices. The day after the energy companies announced they're all going to put their prices up in January.
We don't know what we've done about the 5% VAT.
The wholesale prices of energy are falling and our prices are going up because of the wretched commitment to net zero.
Absolutely. It's lunatic Miliband and his crazy schemes.
It depends whether you think net zero is worth going for. And basically, you're absolutely right. There will be extra cost now for net zero, but that will save money in future.
Well, give me one example in the budget tomorrow of anything she is doing that's going to encourage growth in the economy. There isn't a single element that is going to encourage business, entrepreneurs. I mean, people are leaving the country in droves because they already fear what's happening.
We have no figures on that.
The business secretary did say to the CBI Commission...
He said some people were leaving. Yes, some people are leaving.
As a result of government policy. And he's the business secretary, Nigel.
Yeah, he said some people are leaving, and undoubtedly some people are. What we don't have is any actual figures of who. According to the...
No, Mr Mittle's gone. He gave £5 million to Labour under Blair.
You've got one person then you've been able to name. I know some people will have left, but if you look at what happened with the non-dom tax, so that was a tax on the rich, 60,000 stayed. Some people disappeared, 60,000 stayed. That means Rachel Reeves is on target for the £10 billion she's raising from.
She's not. Anything she's on target for is bankrupting this country. And actually, the best news of all is this will be her last budget. And then we can say good night, Rachel Reeves, and the whole country will sigh a collective big sigh of relief.
She's just a puppet, and the people who are pulling her strings are the OBR, the backbenchers, the bond markets, the manifesto that she signed up to. She has very, very limited free choice in what she can do.
Because she's created her own mess, and she is incapable of acting as a proper Chancellor. She doesn't have the skills to be Chancellor. She should be removed immediately for the sake of this country's health.
Well, the trouble is, you know, Nigel, if a Chancellor goes, it's only a matter of time.
But the Prime Minister goes, yes. Yeah, I mean,
well, that's the hallelujah is what I say to that.
That's why he's going to cling on to her for dear life.
Yes, I mean, I think that...
Yeah, she's the only person in the country, apart from Prince Andrew, who's more unpopular than the Prime Minister.
Yes, that's right.
Well, tomorrow she won't be the one crying in the Houses of Parliament for a change. It'll be everyone else weeping at all the ridiculous things she will be doing, wasting taxpayers' money and stealing from savers.
Well, I mean, again, we don't know exactly what's there, but I mean, something like the mansion tax, that would be very much something that Rachel Reeves has always talked about. A viewer just sent me an old interview I did with Rachel Reeves 3 years ago, where she was talking about the rich ought to actually pay more than the poor, which I think is absolutely right.
Heavens, what an extraordinary idea.
The mansion tax coming up, if it goes ahead, we're talking about homes over 2 million paying effectively 100% more council tax. Those are the right people to hit, the people who can most afford it.
That won't happen until 2020 at the earliest.
Hit the wealth creators, that's what she's doing.
They're going to be valued at $1,999,000.
Yeah, of course they are.
All over the country.
Yeah.
We saw this. I mean, it's just going to be... the estate agents have a field day.
They're not... luckily, a lot of wealthy people in this country are a lot smarter than our Chancellor.
I think
and they'll be able to outwit her.
Yes, they will.
I mean, she doesn't ever raise the taxes she thinks she's going to by doing these stupid measures. And she doesn't learn from it.
But
Socialists never learn.
This is not about putting a house on the market. This is about revaluing the council tax bands F, G and H, the top bands. That's not going to be done by the individuals. So that'll be, and it's about time we actually looked at council tax as a whole.
We've had those bands since 1991.
That's right. Yes.
Well, gentlemen, we have to move on because we've got to go to Westminster Magistrate Court at some point, but we will no doubt, Piers, be talking to you about the aftermath of the budget.
I'm sure.
And you too, Nigel. And prediction, is it her last budget as Chancellor?
No.
Right.
Butter and jam toast, she'll be toast.
Do you think it's her last budget as Chancellor?
I think so, if I had to put money on it. Not that we'll have any after tomorrow, but...
You'll have to get rid of her.
I think he'll move to Foreign Secretary, because otherwise, if he sacks her, he'll be in big trouble.
Yeah.
And then Yvette Cooper will be out.
I think he'll make David Lammy the Chancellor, and we can all have a really good laugh.
We can't have that.
Yeah.
We're going to Westminster Magistrates Court, where Father Ted writer Graeme Linhan is due to speak. He's been cleared of harassing a transgender activist, so we're going to wait for him to come out because he's been cleared, and it's an important case, and it's all about freedom of speech. The transgender activist, who is, of course, a man who is now a what do we call him? A trans man, trans woman?
Trans woman, I think, is the official.
Yeah. Well, he has been found guilty of damaging his mobile phone. It is not their mobile phone, it is his mobile phone. While we're waiting, we might as well carry on with the budget. So I think he'll keep her in the cabinet, because to chuck her out will make his position even more desperate.
Well, let's say it falls tomorrow. That in the event that she has a sort of quasi-Kwarteng budget, you're absolutely right. She will go. It doesn't look as if it'll be one of those. So on the basis of that, yes, she'll be here for next year's budget.
What I think he should do is send her on a financial planning course for beginners, and maybe she might learn one or two basic rules of being Chancellor of the Exchequer.
With her, she did it in an interview at the weekend, and she did it last night, talking to a private meeting of Labour MPs, which was briefed to the media, I might add. About
well, the media could hear it. She was shouting so loudly out in the House of Commons.
She said, "Poor me, it's all misogynistic."
Yeah, that's pathetic. I'm sorry, pathetic.
Yeah.
If you're the Chancellor of the Exchequer, you expect all kinds of bricks to be thrown at you. And you've got to be strong enough to deal with it.
She did say when she first arrived at the Treasury, because I can remember watching her say it, and I'm proud to be speaking to you as your first ever woman Chancellor of the Exchequer. So she's made a lot of being the first one. Quite right, too.
That's right, yes.
But do you have any sympathy for...
Conservatives have had...
She's misogynistic?
Yes, I think that...
3 women Prime Ministers.
She has been complaining about guys coming up to her and mansplaining to her the budget. And I think that all politicians need to have sort of...
The Chancellor brought her deputy from the Treasury into number 10 so you could keep an eye on her.
Well,
she needs to grow grow up and start
Darren Jones.
facing reality.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand Rachel Reeves being irritated by men keep telling her exactly how to run her budget, but politicians have thick skins.
She doesn't listen. I mean, if she listened to some of the people telling her how to run a budget, it might be a bit better.
Men have been telling men chancellors how to do that.
Yeah.
This is not a unique thing, is it?
No. That's what I mean about politicians need to have thick skins to actually, for all the criticism that comes their way.
He went on about teenage scribblers telling him what to do. It's probably people like me in the 80s when I was working for the Times. Teenage, I mean, chancellors get advice all the time.
It comes with
male
the job.
or female.
Yes, but I agree with you. That's what I mean about a thick skin to actually go and deal with it.
She doesn't have a very thick skin, does she?
I think she probably does. I think she was just showing certain irritation. I mean, I tend to agree with Piers. The lead up to this budget has been quite bad.
Calamitous.
Well, bad in the sense that we either go back to budget purdah, where Treasury ministers don't say a word for weeks before a budget. Or you have total transparency, and so earlier in the year you throw out the kind of things you're thinking of doing and do it as a public consultation. Then you can make a decision based on that and find out which taxes.
Right, because the trouble is, all the leaks.
I agree with
they have
Nigel
impacted on markets, which impacts on people's pension.
Absolutely,
funds. People who are retiring.
I mean, all this stuff has affected the markets all year, and it's caused financial damage in many aspects many people.
When we talk about affects the markets, that affects people watching this program because that's their pensions, their insurance. I mean, it affects us in real terms.
It does. And so what she's done is actually, I mean, it is really worse than idiotic. It is actively bad for this country.
Do you think the problem
she has damaged the financial health of this country by her ineptitude.
Do you think, though, that she's just trying to do too many things instead of having one central vision, which might be bring the deficit down, let's say?
I don't think she's got a vision.
She wants to appease environmentalists. She wants to appease the left of her party. She wants to make sure she doesn't frustrate the bond market.
I don't know what
to do too many.
But that's what budgets are, isn't it?
I don't think she knows what she wants to do. I don't think she's got any real vision other than I'm a socialist, I just want to take money off people. That's all she does.
Panel, stay with us because we're still waiting for Graeme Linhan to come out of Westminster Magistrates Court, but we are going to talk now to Sam Armstrong, who's from the Free Speech Union. Sam Armstrong, good morning.
Good morning.
Now, just restate to people why this is such an important verdict today and remind listeners and viewers what's happened today at the court.
Well, Graeme has the misfortune of being a prophet in his own time. He called out the trans phenomenon far earlier than many other people were prepared to do so. And his reward for doing that has been a relentless persecution at the hands of the woke media industry in which he worked as a comedy writer, but also, sadly, the state. And this incident goes back to last October when Graeme was attending the Battle of Ideas in Westminster, in which he was perfectly reasonably going about his business, expressing his views on that topic. While there, he was confronted by a militant trans activist who thrust a phone into his face and quite aggressively, actually, and when it was knocked out, called the police and said that Graeme Linhan had in fact been harassing him. The police, not wanting to deal with this issue perhaps as impartially as we would hope, immediately took that trans activist's side and went after Graeme, arrested him, charged him with 2 offences, one of harassment, one of criminal damage. And today's verdict deals with those cases. It's different from the separate case in which Graeme was arrested by 5 armed police officers that viewers will remember over some other posts online. But the judge today convicted him of criminal damage for knocking the phone away, but cleared him, critically, I think, of harassing that individual by posting his gender-critical beliefs online.
Now, Sam, we've also got the case of the puberty blockers trial in the news. I think many people thought that the Supreme Court judgment earlier this year that ruled that sex means biological sex would be an end to all this trans ideology. It hasn't transpired that way, has it?
Yeah, well, I'm afraid a woke mind virus has been a difficult creature to deal with, and it is fighting back. And so often, the people who are on the front line of this have been women, and those men that, like Graeme Linhan, have been very bravely, actually, prepared to stand by those that are calling out this issue when it wasn't popular. And I think we forget, actually, in this post-Supreme Court world, that it wasn't so long ago that very few people, lots of politicians, the Conservative Party and elsewhere weren't prepared actually to call this out for what it was, and were too busy trying to appease those that are in the more popular parts of the mainstream media that perhaps took a rather different view.
We've got in our studio with us, Sam, a man called Nigel Nelson who might respond to. I mean, are you part of this woke virus?
Well, hang on. It was just what Miriam said, which was actually a little bit misleading, Miriam, that the Hilary Cass report that criticised the Tavistock Clinic, one of the things it said was that these trials should only be done in a clinical setting and should be done for research purposes.
How have I misled you on that?
Well, because you were saying that the Supreme Court has suddenly come in and changed.
The Supreme Court judgment brought into the light some of the misunderstanding that people in public life have had about what is a woman, and it's changed the debate on what is a woman.
Yeah, but it has not changed the official position of what a woman is.
It has in law.
No, it hasn't.
Or the interpretation of it.
Well, what it means is that now we know that a biological woman has a right to go to their own women-only spaces.
That's not
a biological woman has a right to compete in women's sport.
No, we know that a biological man doesn't.
All right, or put it the other way round, that a biological man cannot compete in women's sport. That's what the Supreme Court said. It didn't change the Gender Recognition Act, which has been around for 20 years, which says a man can be a woman.
That the Supreme Court judgment was a wake-up moment for many in the media that actually men and women are different, and I think many people assume, because of that change in temperature, if you like, that there's no way that trial would have got ethical approval, and yet it has. But let's bring Sam back in.
Were you convinced by what Nigel Nelson, the woke warrior here, Sam?
It's not a free speech matter, but speaking personally, I'll say this. This trial that Nigel is defending is proposing to give to 10-year-old kids that should be playing hopscotch chemical castration drugs. They are the same drugs that are used to chemically castrate paedophiles around the world where that kind of punishment is used. And this trial is going to hand them out with very little, as far as I can see, attempt to convince children that, maybe this idea is all mad. It's going to hand them out to 10-year-old kids. Let's be clear. People like Nigel, they're nice people. I can understand why they want to be reasonable. But what they're proposing is chemical castration drugs for children in primary schools.
Indeed, and I don't think Hilary Cass, when she wrote that report, would probably have believed that it would ever have had ethical approval. Let's get back to the Graeme Linhan case, because as you said, he's been extremely brave in the way that he's taken on this issue. He's lost his job, he's lost many friends, he's lost out financially. Now that the media world, at least, is turning, it's much more acceptable to say the kinds of things he's been saying, do you think that there'll be some sort of re-acceptance of him back into the industry, into the arts industry?
I fear not is the answer, and Graeme has actually voted with his feet on that. He's moved over to the United States, and that's where he lives now, because he's found that since expressing his views that his own actors that performed in the show that he wrote that made those actors famous have denounced him. And the same thing, of course, happened to J.K. Rowling. And, Graeme is a brilliant, fantastically funny comedy writer, but he's perhaps not in the same league as J.K. Rowling, and he's had to move overseas to get away from it. And look, at the Free Speech Union, we've dealt with 5,000 cases of people that have been cancelled in one way or another, and the same story is over and over and over again, which is it's people with one particular set of views that have been cancelled often by a mob that often comes from the woke end of politics, and each and every time they leave that situation with their life irreversibly ruined. And yes, we were in great legal victories, but time and time again, people are just losing out for just expressing their own view.
All right, Sam, thank you for that. We've still got Piers Pottinger here. Piers Pottinger, it's very important that he's won this case, Graeme Linhan.
Yeah, I think it's very important, and I'm very glad he has. When it comes to the puberty blocker trials, though, which is a separate issue. I think it's absolutely morally unforgivable that the people are experimenting on the biology of primary school children. It's the kind of thing that doctors did in Auschwitz during the war, experimenting like this. It's disgraceful. And how any doctor who has taken the Hippocratic Oath can do this is beyond me. I think it should be stopped immediately. And it is how does a primary school child really know that they want to be someone else? And why should their biology, their natural progression, be tinkered with for the purposes of science?
Because it's a balance. It's a balance between the
completely wrong.
It's a balance between
wrong.
It's a balance between the harms that puberty blockers might do, which obviously the Cass report outlined, and the harm that the child might do to themselves, and depression and the various other things the child can have.
That line has been parroted by the trans activists. Parents being told, would you prefer a live daughter or a dead son? Which is just emotional manipulation. There's absolutely no evidence.
That is also a completely ridiculous argument.
No evidence.
There's no evidence of that.
Dysphoria.
And what there is evidence is you experimenting on children with their sexual development is actually illegal, should remain illegal, and should not be allowed.
But that was the point of having the Cass report, to actually decide what was the way forward for something like this. And the way forward she identified was that the puberty blockers should only be given in research settings, which is what this is, carefully monitored, which the Tavistock Clinic didn't do. And so these children will be tested for heart, bones, brains to make sure there are no ill effects. And if there are ill effects, they'll be able to treat them.
Well, I'd love to know whose parents allowed their children to be tested in this way.
Well, 230
They should look at themselves very carefully.
I think we can go to Westminster Magistrate. No, we thought we could. We're not quite right. So carry on the discussion.
Nigel, there would be another way. And Helen Joyce from Sex Matters was on the programme yesterday, and she was saying that the other thing that Hilary Cass did identify was that thousands of children have been treated in the Tavistock, and yet adult services have completely lost touch with them. And one more ethical way of looking at the long-term impacts of puberty blockers would just be to find a way to get back in touch with those people and to look at the effects that puberty blockers have had on their lives. Surely that should be the first step.
But the Cass argument was that a lot of people were getting treated outside the trial at the Tavistock.
OK, we're going to Westminster Magistrates Courts, gentlemen, so we're going to hear Graeme Linhan after his important victory for free speech. Let's have a listen.
I'm very pleased by today's verdict. The judge found me and the women who gave evidence on my behalf to be credible, honest witnesses, and said that my actions were not criminal and did not constitute harassment. The judge commented that the complainant, a well-known trans activist, was not truthful. There are a group of dangerous men who are determined to bully women and girls and to misuse the courts and police in furtherance of a misogynistic agenda. I'm proud to have stood up to them, and I will continue to do so. I'm grateful to the Free Speech Union for their unwavering support and for helping to ensure that those who speak out against these dangerous activists are protected. If you want to join me in thanking the Free Speech Union, please join them. Thank you very much.
Will you be appealing the conviction?
Yes.
Could we get a word just on the impact that the trial has had on you, just on a personal level?
You know, it's what they do. It's what trans activists do. We have a phrase: the punishment is the process. And they like to put people through these kinds of experiences to make them frightened about standing up to them. But I'm hoping that with this judgment, you know, the people in future won't be subject to those kind of tactics.
And what's your message to Sophia?
He's probably wise.
Let's try though.
Well, let's bring...
Well, that was a short statement, but his smile on his face says everything, doesn't it? Yeah. It's a hugely important victory. Shall we go back to Sam Armstrong from the Free Speech Union? Sam, your reaction?
Well, I am beyond happy for Graeme that he's got so much out of it. We put him in touch with and provided for him a top-flight criminal KC to represent him in this trial, and he's appealing, as he says, his conviction on the criminal damage side, which we think is actually quite a dangerous little verdict within today's broader victory, which basically allows extremist activists, like the types of people that have been targeting Graeme, to exercise a heckler's veto, to turn up to shut down their debate. So we're going to be appealing that up to the Crown Court, and I'm hopeful that we'll get another victory for Graeme there, because time and time again the courts are beginning to exercise some judgment, even when the Crown Prosecution Service isn't. And we saw, of course, a separate but I think related case actually of Hamid Koskan, the Quran burner, who was acquitted by Southwark Crown Court on appeal from Westminster Magistrates Court, but the Crown Prosecution Service seem hell-bent on getting him. So they're appealing that case right up to the High Court. And that is what I think it all comes down to, which is a prosecution service, police forces, that seem to be all too happy to act as the kind of paramilitary wing of the trans rights or Islamist movements.
Well, Sam, really important. Sam Armstrong, thank you so much for joining us. And there'll be a lot more on this throughout the day.
Absolutely.
We're going to go to Mark White, of course, who is our Home and Security Editor, who is at the court and was in court for that hearing. Mark, he's overjoyed, of course, Graeme Linhan. This is the same man who, of course, was arrested on a completely unrelated matter by 5 armed police officers at Heathrow Airport, all to do with the trans community. I think it's time the state left him alone.
Yeah, I was speaking to Graeme Linhan inside the building before he came out, and there's no doubt he is very pleased to have an end to this process which has been hanging over him for some considerable time. And you're right to bring up that earlier arrest, which he also puts down to what he calls a sustained campaign of harassment by these trans activists. And this is what he said there in that short statement, is the way that they operate is to harass, to bring cases like this against those that dare argue against him. So there's no doubt he's very pleased that he has been cleared of that harassment charge. As far as criminal damage is concerned, although he was found guilty of that charge, he's not going to have to pay any criminal damages, because apparently the activists concerned never got their phone repaired.
Right. Mark White, thank you so much for that. Well, there'll be a lot more about that, I'm absolutely sure, in the next program, because that's it from us. And by the way, both of us are very pleased with that verdict. Common sense prevails at Westminster Magistrates today. Up next, Good Afternoon Britain with Tom and Sophie. We'll see you tomorrow.
Is it really misogynistic to oppose the Chancellor's economic policy? Well, with now 24 hours until this much-feted budget, we'll be asking the deep questions.
And a street named Prince Andrew Way in Northern Ireland will not be named that for much longer. We'll have all the details coming up on Good Afternoon Britain.
That's to come after your weather.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. It's going to be the sunniest day of the week for many of us today, but it is feeling colder out there, and there is a frost expected more widely this evening. We've got a northerly wind across the UK, particularly across coastal areas, and this will drag in a few showers to eastern areas of Scotland, England, as well as southwestern areas of Wales, down in the southwest of England too, down into Cornwall. But for many of us, it will be a dry and clear day. Plenty of sunshine out there, but with that northerly wind, it will feel chillier. Temperatures in the single figures wherever you are, and particularly if you're exposed to that onshore wind off the North Sea, it's going to be feeling colder than it has done over the past few days. And now into this evening, there's very little in the way of change. Another dry evening to come for many areas. A few showers, though, across the far north and west of Scotland. We've got a weather front approaching from the north and west that will take centre stage throughout Wednesday afternoon. Across Northern Ireland, we'll start to see some cloud thicken, but further inland across Scotland, northern areas of England, we'll start to see that frost setting in this evening quite early on, I think. And a few showers could come further inland across eastern areas of England this evening. But for many of us, it is going to be a dry night. And as I said, the frost will really start to set in. You can see those blues across the map. That's showing we're expecting temperatures to dip below zero. So it's quite a widespread affair by Wednesday morning, away from the far southeast of England. So we could be down as low as -6 or -7 across parts parts of Scotland, -5 across rural areas of Wales and parts of the Midlands. As I said, on Wednesday, we've got a weather front on the way. Now, that will push into parts of Northern Ireland, much of western Scotland throughout Wednesday morning. The rain's not going to be particularly heavy, but there's going to be a lot of cloud with it. And with this rain and cloud, temperatures will be on the rise. You can see the wind direction starting to shift to more of a southwesterly, so up to 11 or 10 degrees. But in the south and east, although it's dry, it's still going to be a chilly one. Bye-bye.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
It's the final week to see how you can enjoy Christmas on us. First, we'll give you an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash. Then we'll give you a further £10,000 cash to spend on all your Christmas presents, even the tree. Christmas lunch, that's on us too, with £1,000 in shopping vouchers to spend at your favourite supermarket. Finally, a GB News Christmas goodie bag. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB17 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 28th of November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m.
Only on GB News.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.